excuse for a leader? Is there still life in the old party yet? We'll be live from Manchester for all of the latest. And Kemi Badenoch has put on a brave face at the Tory party conference, but with rumours of a leadership challenge incoming and the party hemorrhaging voters and councillors to reform, can she fight back? Or later on today, she'll be grilled by GBNews' Chris Hope. And after 20 Tory councillors dramatically defected to reform this morning, Nigel Farage has blasted the Conservative Party is finished. On today's show, I'll be joined by two of those defectors to ask them, why did you decide to jump ship? And today, of course, marks the second anniversary of the Hamas terrorist invasion of Israel. On today's show, I'll be joined by a Jewish journalist whose street was bombed that day as she heads to a London remembrance event later today entitled October the 7th, A Time to Speak.
Cameron, my good sir. Palestine.
I'm not committing a crime.
Yes, you are.
You're...
Meanwhile, as you can see on your screens there, disgusting footage of a London woman cutting down yellow ribbons to commemorate Israeli hostages has gone viral around the world. On today's show, I'll be joined by the Jewish woman who filmed that footage, who asks, what kind of person would even do that? And the United Nations claims that over 500,000 Gazans are trapped in famine. But is that true? On today's show, I'll be joined by Reform UK's Deputy Leader Richard Tice, who just returned from the Israeli-Gaza frontline. He'll share exclusive footage of huge convoys of food going into Gaza and ask, is the UN telling the truth? And GBNews has exclusive access to the frontline officers leading the fight back against London's phone theft epidemic. That's all coming up in your next hour. Well, the show, it's a pleasure to have your company. 20 councillors in one morning, one every 15 minutes, defected from the Conservatives to Reform UK this morning. Why did they do it? Well, I'll be joined in the studio in a short while's time by two of those defectors to ask them that precise question. And if Nigel Farage is saying the Tory party is dead, why are so many Conservatives going to Reform UK? That's all coming up in your next hour. Stay tuned. Get in touch usual ways. gbnews.com/your say is the way to do so. But now it's your headlines, and here's Tatiana Sanchez.
Martin, thank you. The top stories. It's 2 years to the day since Hamas militants stormed into southern Israel, killing 1,200 people and taking 251 hostages. Israelis are gathering across the country to mark the anniversary. At the site of the Nova Festival massacre, flowers, candles and tributes now line the memorial. Families of those still missing say they'll keep fighting until every hostage is returned. Meanwhile, Israel's military campaign in Gaza continues. More than 67,000 have been killed, with most homes damaged or destroyed. Indirect peace talks between Israel and Hamas have resumed in Egypt as hopes rise for a breakthrough in the Gaza war. Egypt's foreign minister says the talks are centred on creating a security plan for Israel's full withdrawal from Gaza. Negotiators are also seeking to guarantee unrestricted UN aid access to the territory. Cairo says the ultimate goal is to unite the West Bank and Gaza and move closer to a lasting two-state solution. Pro-Palestine protesters, university students from King's College, UCL, LSE and Roehampton are walking out of classes this afternoon in London as they demonstrate on the second anniversary of the October 7th attacks. It comes after the Prime Minister branded the planned protests un-British and urged students to show some humanity. Writing in The Times, he added the UK remains committed to peace with a safe and secure Israel alongside a viable Palestinian state. Robert Jenrick has caused a stir at the Tory party conference, arriving on stage with a black box and revealing what was inside, a judge's wig. The Shadow Justice Secretary used the prop to call for a crackdown on what he calls activist judges, saying those linked to Open Borders charities are like referees who support the opposition. The Shadow Justice Secretary also launched a blistering attack on Sir Keir Starmer.
We all knew that Keir Starmer would be a bad Prime Minister. But I don't think anyone anticipated he would be this bad. A freebie-grabbing, free speech stifling, criminal releasing, tax raising, farmer hating, Brexit betraying, aspiration sapping, sorry excuse for a leader.
Meanwhile, Jenrick says he won't shy away from his comments about not seeing another white face during a British Birmingham visit in the Wandsworth area. He insists his remarks were about integration and not race, linking poor integration to last week's terror attack in Manchester. Kemi Badenoch defended him, saying there's nothing wrong with making observations, but Labour called his comments a red line. Former Tory Mayor Andy Street said Jenrick was wrong about Handsworth, which he described as a very integrated place. It comes after The Guardian published a leaked recording of Jenrick's remarks from a Conservative dinner in March. Earlier, at the Conservative Party conference in Manchester, the hall was barely a third full for Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp. Opening with a joke about hangovers, Philp admitted past Tory governments made a mistake on immigration. He said legal migration had been too high for too long, and under new leadership, things will change. He also defended tougher border control, insisting it's not racist to want security or social cohesion.
For many years now, legal migration has been far too high. High under successive governments, including the last one. It was a mistake. It should never have been allowed to happen. And under new leadership, we pledge it will never happen again.
In other news, Nigel Farage told a court that a small boat's migrant said he's going to shoot me in a TikTok video in which the Afghan national said he also wanted to come to England to marry the politician's sister. Fayaz Khan, who's 26, is charged with making a threat to kill the Reform UK leader between October the 12th and the 15th last year, in a post that Mr Farage said was pretty chilling. A jury at Southwark Crown Court was told today that Khan had a very large presence online, with his videos on TikTok under the username Madapasa amassing hundreds of thousands of views. Police say they've busted an international gang accused of smuggling up to 40,000 stolen phones from the UK to China. In the Met's biggest ever crackdown on mobile theft, 18 suspects have been arrested and more than 2,000 stolen devices seized. The operation began when a victim tracked their iPhone to a Heathrow warehouse, sparking raids on 28 properties across London and Hertfordshire. Officers believe the gang exported up to half of all phones stolen in London, with devices sold abroad for up to £4,000 each. And first-year doctors in England have voted overwhelmingly to strike over jobs and pay. The BMA says 97% backed action amid fears of unemployment when current contracts end next summer. More than half of second-year doctors say they have no guaranteed work from August next year. Talks with the government are continuing, but the union says both pay and job security must be fixed to avoid walkouts. Health Minister Stephen Kinnock says strikes would be needless and counterproductive. Those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, more from me in half an hour.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
And here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.3413 and €1.1498. The price of gold, £2,964.85 per ounce. And the FTSE 100 is at 9,495 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Thank you, Tatiana. Now, the Shadow Justice Secretary, Robert Jenrick, has unleashed a scathing attack on the Labour Party, calling the Prime Minister a sorry excuse for a leader. And that was part of his conference speech, where he also launched a scathing attack on the Attorney General, Lord Hermer.
I present to you the Attorney General, Richard Hermer. Like one of those infamous mafia lawyers of yesteryear, Hermer always chose a particular type of client. Shamima Begum, Osama bin Laden's right-hand man, terrorists involved in 7/7.
Well, but with 20 councillors defecting from the Conservatives to reform this morning alone, is the party really on the warpath. Well, let's cross live now to the conference. Let's go there directly and join GBNews' political editor, Chris Hope. Chris, welcome to the show. I saw you dancing the foxtrot with Kemi Badenoch at the party there last night. I hope your hangover is now well and truly gone. Unfortunately, the Tory party probably can't say the same. It started terribly with 20 defections to Reform UK, but Robert Jenrick has come out blasting today, tearing into Sir Keir Starmer, tearing into Lord Hermer. There seems to be still life in the old party yet, Chris.
Yeah, I think I was in the crowd there for Robert Jenrick's speech. I think it was that they liked it in the audience. I think it was fascinating to hear him point out that the Lord Chancellor, who is also the Labour, in this case, Justice Secretary, appoints members of the judiciary, or has oversight, I should say, of the way those are appointed. And you heard there from Robert Jenrick, he's saying that there are dozens of them who have connections to activist groups. And the big complaint, of course, has been activist judges. You're seeing him on screen there, of course, Robert Jenrick at last year's conference, I think that is. But it's interesting, isn't it, that he is saying we need to try and get judges who are more in tune with where the country is, less activists. Of course, he's gunning really for those judges who stop ministers trying to deport people who shouldn't be here, and using elements of the European Convention on Human Rights, Article 8, notably right to family life. So he's unpicking that, and he held up that full-bottomed wig, a judge's wig, almost to demonstrate, you know, it's okay to talk about judges in this way, although some would say it's a political way of attacking the judiciary, and they can't respond, they can't hit back. So I think that was promising. I have talked later on your show to Kemi Badenoch, the Tory leader, asking her about a lot of issues which you're concerned about, Martin. That plays out at 5 o'clock, so do stay tuned to that. I think the atmosphere here at the conference, as it should be, is you can say it's upbeat. It is quite empty in some of these meetings. It feels it's being brought together quite closely because it's not that big. There are fewer people attending. This party is producing policies which we haven't had for a year. They want to leave the European Convention on Human Rights, axe the Climate Change Act, and it's how Kemi Badenoch and her team sell that over the next few weeks will have a bearing maybe on Reform UK's lead in the polls. We did put the question, of course, of those defections to the Tory leader, and you'll have her answer at 5 o'clock.
Now, Chris Hope, Robert Jenrick there steaming into Sir Keir Starmer, called him a farmer-hating, sorry excuse for a leader. And The Guardian have done a hit job on Mr Jenrick, digging up, as they do. They've exhumed some old comments made in private where Mr Jenrick claimed he didn't see another white face while on a trip to Birmingham. He made a video for GBNews about the bin strikes. He made an observation. If he didn't see another white face in the area he was in, that's just him saying what he saw. They're just clutching at straws, aren't they?
Well, he did say that. It's worth perhaps reading out the full quotes from Robert Jenrick. He said, that's not the kind of country I want to live in. He said that one thing he noticed this integrated, in fact, in an hour and a half I was filming news there, I didn't see another white face. That's not the country I want to live in. I want to live in a country where people are properly integrated. He said that, but he carried on. He said, it's not about the colour of your skin or your faith. Of course, it isn't. It isn't. But I want people to be living alongside each other, not parallel lives. That's not the right way we want to live as a country. So he's saying in the full quote, he's trying to have white people of colour living together happily, rather than having people of different colours in different parts of the country. He's trying to bring people together more than divide them, I think. That's what he's trying to say, and that's the full quote, and certainly that's what he would be keen to emphasise today.
I think he made a point that many people watching the show would make. And maybe if The Guardian are going after him, it's because he's getting flack when he's above the target. Many people think that Mr Jenrick may be the leader in waiting. Chris Hope, I've seen early sides of some of the best lines of your Kemi Badenoch interview. It's a cracker. I look forward to seeing that in full at 5 p.m. Chris Hope, superb as ever, keeping life in the party there in Manchester. Let's also cross live now to the conference as GBNews' Deputy Political Editor Tom Harwood is there for us. Tom Harwood, I hope you're feeling not quite so hungover as the Conservative Party today when they saw 20 defections to Reform UK.
Yes, it was certainly a big orchestrated move from Reform, putting their tanks on the Conservative Party's lawn. But the Conservatives are trying to look beyond it and talk about their policies. One thing that I've noticed, however, about this conference is that there seems to be a presence looming large over it. If Nigel Farage was the ghost in every room at the Labour Party conference last week, in this particular conference, a different figure is just about everywhere you look. I'm standing in front of lots of pictures of hundreds of Conservative activists who are here at the party conference. But this mosaic of faces, these activists, these Conservative delegates, actually becomes something else if you take a step back. Have a look at this. They've turned all of these party activists into a giant mosaic of the face of Margaret Thatcher. In fact, Margaret Thatcher is everywhere at this party conference if you look around. Not just here at this mosaic, but there's an entire theatre dedicated to the former 11-and-a-half-year Prime Minister right next to it. And if we swing round even further, what we can see is three remarkable artefacts, three of the most famous dresses that the first female Prime Minister of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland wore. The dress Margaret Thatcher wore when she resigned as Prime Minister in November 1990. The dress that Margaret Thatcher wore when she gave that barnstorming speech against the formation of a federal Europe. No, 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 she said at the dispatch box of the House of Commons, wearing this very suit. And then the iconic headgear and sort of raincoat, I suppose, that she wore on the top of that famous tank when she was visiting British armed forces in West Germany. It does seem that whilst these are fascinating museum pieces, is the Conservative Party leaning too much into its past? Does it have enough to say about its future? Is it itself becoming a museum?
Yeah, Tom, I think it's an excellent point. A lot of people are saying what Margaret Thatcher think of the state of the nation, of the state of the Conservative Party. It does feel to me a bit like a football fan whose team isn't winning anything anymore, digging out a DVD of when they used to be good. I know all about that. I'm a Nottingham Forest fan. And may I say, Tom, a great impression of Maggie Thatcher there. Perhaps you might leap in and pop the frock on and complete the look. Tom Harwood, superb as ever.
Martin, don't make me do the whole speech.
Superb, Tom Harwood, as ever, keeping your energy high there at the Conservative Party conference. Back to you later in the show. It's time now for your Great British giveaway, and it's your chance to win a brand new 4-berth motorhome worth an astonishing 74 grand, plus a whopping 33 grand in tax-free moolah. Here's how you could win the lot.
You're not going to want to miss our greatest Great British giveaway so far. You could bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. And if that wasn't enough, you'll also get to drive away in this brand new motorhome. With thanks to Marquis Leisure, this brand new 2025 Benimar Primero could be yours. It comes with all the mod cons you'd expect from a vehicle worth over £74,000 and comfortably sleeps 4 people. This prize package is worth over £104,000. And remember, if you can dream it, you can drive it away. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. The winner will be contacted live on GB News, week commencing 10th November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good luck, and still to come.
Women are actually talking now, and we're not going to be put up by one person, one man.
Yeah, the gender-critical debate got a bit spicy at the Tory party conference earlier on today. What did the Shadow Health Secretary, Stuart Andrew, make of it? We'll hear from him shortly, live from Manchester. But next, we have this. Tories are defecting to Reform UK in droves. I'll be joined in the studio shortly by Reform Councillor for Hertsmere, Caroline Clapper, and also Reform UK's Chair for Hertsmere, Darren Selkers, to ask them what made you jump ship. That's next with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News, Britain's News Channel.
the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. Only on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk
No,
now?
that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Time is 3:23. You with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, the Tory party conference is in full swing and MPs are fleeing to reform. Well, actually, councillors are fleeing to reform in their droves. Now, Kemi Badenoch says the Conservatives are shedding a lot of baggage, but insists that success will be judged at the next election and not before. However, Reform leader Nigel Farage posted on X earlier on today saying that the Conservatives are finished as he welcomes a drove of new councillors into his party. But is Nigel Farage right? Is the Conservative Party finished? And why are former Conservatives jumping ship at such an alarming rate? Well, let's ask a couple of them now. So we're joined in the studio by the recent defector this morning, the Reform councillor for Hertfordshire, Caroline Clapper, and Reform UK chair for the Hertfordshire area, Darren Selkus. Welcome to you both. 20. It was one every 15 minutes this morning. Quite the turquoise tidal wave. I have to ask you, Caroline, as a former Conservative, why did you jump ship?
Well, I've been a Conservative for decades. I've had the same values as I've always held, and I feel like the Conservative Party no longer represents those values. And I suppose, more importantly for me, I got into politics because I wanted to make a change. I wanted to make a difference, make the communities better that I represent, and I feel that I can no longer do that under the Conservative banner.
Why not?
Because I feel there's no aspiration there. They were in government for 14 years. They didn't perform the way I would have liked them to. They've spent a year in opposition. We've got a terrible Labour government that they haven't done much to challenge in the interim. And then all of a sudden, conference week, you're seeing, you know, all of these policies suddenly being thrown out at the 11th hour because they're doing so terribly in the polls. And I just don't believe what they say anymore. And even if what they're saying is true, really, is anyone listening? I think it just might be too little too late.
Darren Selkis, of course, a lot of people in the Reform movement are saying we thought that the Reform Party would be not just the Tories Mark II. It's meant to be about changing politics for good. What would you say to the critics today who said, well, if the Conservative Party is dead, why are so many Conservatives being accepted into Reform?
Well, it's not just Conservatives, it's Labour as well. In fact, in Hartsmere, plenty of Labour supporters are joining us. The two areas we won in the most recent election in May, the two divisions we won were Labour held. So we're winning Labour votes just as much as Conservatives. It just happens that Caroline and Brett, who joined today, are Conservative councillors. But they're not the only ones in the pipeline, Martin.
Well, you got some lefties on the way?
I hope so, because when it's not about left or right in politics anymore. People want something new. The Conservatives don't represent the people they used to. Labour certainly don't represent the working class. People have had enough and want something different, and that's what Reform is offering.
Can I ask you, I understand that your patch, I think I'm right in saying, has the highest percentage of Jewish residents of any UK parliamentary constituency, and we're seeing, as we speak, on October the 7th, incredibly, 2 years to the day, we're seeing British students across campuses shouting from the river to the sea. We've got a guest on the show later on who filmed a woman in North London yesterday cutting down yellow ribbons for Israeli hostages. I'm astonished that this is happening. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'm absolutely appalled by the demonstrations that are happening today on the anniversary of the atrocities of the 7th of October, the demonstrations that happened... the atrocity that happened in Manchester on Yom Kippur when people were demonstrating that day. But most importantly, I mean, one of the things that actually drew me to the Reform Party that I really stood by was the fact that they were the only party who have been saying for the last 2 years since they started that we shouldn't be having these hate marches on a weekly basis, which are making the Jewish community feel very uncomfortable to go into London of a weekend. So they're the only party that have called for that. And all of a sudden this week, you've seen the Conservatives are talking about it, the Labour Party are talking about it. But it just seems too late because for 2 years, the Jewish community are looking for those kinds of answers, are looking for people to say these are hate marches and they need to be stopped.
Darren?
I think it's too kind to say that they're protests. Today is the two-year anniversary of that atrocious terrorist attack and on the 7th of October, and they're celebrating it. These aren't protests. It's a celebration of terrorism. It shouldn't be allowed, especially today. Completely unacceptable. It's anti-Semitism, and it's dominated our streets now for 2 years, and enough's enough.
You're not concerned, though, that if we clamp down on the protests that you don't like, and the same powers could be used, for example, to close down, I don't know, the Pink Ladies protest or the Asylum Hotel protest that you might agree with?
There's no problem with the protest, but when it becomes a hate march and it's anti-Semitic and it's celebrating a terrorist attack, no, I don't think that is going too far. And in fact, you don't even need new laws for this. There are existing laws available to stop exactly this.
Caroline, I want to get your take on, what's happened in your heart. You've obviously... It's painful for people to change their political allegiances. Now, a lot of people in this country have been through the same slow morph where they think they have to do something different. What was the moment that really, for you, crystallised the fact you had to jump ship?
It's been building for me. It's been building for a really long time. And you're right, it's a really hard, very upsetting decision. And going along with that, not only do I leave behind loads of colleagues that I've worked with for, not just a few years, for decades and built up relationships, but lots of really good friends. But I just think sometimes you've got to put principle before politics. For me, I want to stand up and make a difference. I'm not happy about the shape that this country is in at this present moment in time. And I could sit back with all of my colleagues and say either, oh, if we wait, things might change, or, oh, there's going to be light at the end of the tunnel. But actually, I think we need to make a difference. People need to stand up. They need to be bold. They need to be brave. It's not easy. It's not comfortable. I'm sure I'll get a lot of, backlash. I've had a lot of supportive messages. But sometimes this is a decision you have to come to.
Your critics might say that you're not up for the fight. You're wimping out. You should stand by your guns and stand by the Conservatives, and you're smelling the political wind. You're going to get annihilated potentially. And so this is opportunism. What would you say to those people?
Well, I mean, firstly, I've been a Tory for a very long time, which means, you know, I was a Tory in the 90s where people weren't just not voting Tory, but they were screaming in your face and slamming the door on you on the doorstep. So I've been through the hard times with the Conservatives. I would have loved nothing more than to see the Conservative Party make a comeback. But, you know, when it comes to it, for me, this is a big political risk. I mean, I'm not worried about my seat. I had a very large majority at the last election, one of the highest Conservative majorities in the country.
She could have comfortably stayed as a blue.
Yeah, so it's not like there was any concern about me losing my seat. This isn't opportunistic. This is a big risk for me. But for me, this has got to be about making a change because I believe in the future of our country and I believe that Reform and Nigel Farage are the only people who can bring that forward.
Darren, yourself, you've been on a bit of a political journey. You come from a Conservative stock, right? That's your...
Actually, no. So... I wasn't political until 2019. I wasn't political at all. So I wasn't neither Conservative or Labour. I'm an ex-soldier, had a military career and then a business career. Didn't have time for politics and then got involved in 2019. And since then I've been stuck in it. And now it's very emotional and I'm on a battle to bring change for the country.
Not just that, but what is it about the future of the country that's attracting more and more ordinary people? And a lot of people are saying, irrespective of your political stripes, you know, we need more people with a business background who've been in the military, who've been in the police, ordinary people who understand the real world. I mean, is that what the country needs? And career politicians, it feels, people don't believe them anymore.
I think to some extent, you're absolutely right. They need people with experience from all sides. But actually, I think what people want is hope for the country and they want aspiration. They want to see somebody who's actually got a plan to improve the country. You know, I go around and speak to lots of schools, lots of students. I've got children of my own. Young people want to see a bit of aspiration in the future. They want, you know, a vision of something better.
Do you reckon that the decision to lower the voting age might actually come back to bite Sir Keir Starmer on the backside?
Oh, absolutely, 100%. You talk to youngsters today and they're very much behind reform. I mean, everywhere you go...
And the Greens, and maybe Corbyn's boy.
As well.
It's just something different.
As well, but the support... Speaking to youngsters, the support we get in reform is enormous. I think Labour have made a huge mistake.
Final word to you.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree. I mean, Darren and I did a hustings together during the election, and you could really see that, you know, the sixth formers, the people who are really engaged in politics, those people who'll be voting at the next election, they want to see a bit of hope, they want to see a bit of vision, and they want reform, they want change. That's what we all want. That's why I'm here today, and I'm really excited about the future. OK, Caroline Clapper, the newly minted Reform Councillor for Hertfordshire, and Darren Zelkas, pleasure to have you company today.
Thank you very much,
Thank you very much indeed for joining us in the studio. Now, today marks 2 years since the October the 7th attacks in Israel. So we're asking today, is the October the 7th protest un-British? Well, you can scan the QR code on your screen right now to vote, and we'll show the results later on in the show. There's loads more still to come between now and 4 p.m, including we'll be back live at the Tory Party conference where the Shadow Health Secretary Stuart Andrew will be live with GBNews' political editor Chris Hope, and also... GBNews has exclusive access to the frontline officers leading the fight back against London's phone theft epidemic. That's all coming next. But first, here's your latest news headlines, and here's Tatiana Sanchez.
Martin, thank you. The top stories. It is 2 years since Hamas's attacks on Israel, which left 1,200 people dead and 251 taken hostage. Israel's military campaign in Gaza continues, though. More than 67,000 have been killed, with most homes damaged or destroyed. Indirect ceasefire talks are underway in Egypt, with Donald Trump's peace plan on the table. He says there's a really good chance of a deal. Elsewhere, 20 Conservative councillors have defected to Reform UK, a major boost for Nigel Farage's party. Kemi Badenoch says the Conservatives are shedding a lot of baggage, but insists success will be judged at the next election. And the Met Police say they've smashed a major phone theft gang in the UK's largest ever crackdown. Officers recovered 40,000 stolen handsets being shipped to China. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. More from me in half an hour.
For all the latest from GB News whilst you're on the go, get the GB News app. Scan the QR code now to download or visit gbnews.com/app.
Hello there, good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Through this evening and overnight, we'll see a bit of a north-south split in our weather, often mild and cloudy towards the south, but to the north of this, clearer air means it's going to be turning chilly as we head through the course of the evening. There'll be some cloud and some spells of rain at times, particularly where we see this frontal system sinking its way southwards. So initially across northern parts of England, northern parts of Wales, and eventually sinking into central and southern parts through the course of the night. So often cloudy here with some spells of drizzle. To the north of this, though, largely dry and plenty of clear skies, so it's likely we'll see some mist and fog by the morning. This mainly across northern England, possibly Northern Ireland, but across Scotland, more cloud once again, plenty of showers moving through here. So a slightly chillier start across northern areas, but to the south, milder, cloudier with some drizzle. It's also going to be a fairly damp start once again across Scotland. Plenty of showers moving through here. These could merge together to bring some more persistent outbreaks of rain at times, but mostly dry across the far east of Scotland. Should be mostly dry too across Northern Ireland, northern parts of England, a chance of some low cloud around at times, particularly as we head towards dawn. And across parts of the south, once again, fairly cloudy. It's probably going to be quite a gloomy start with some drizzle in places. Now this system once again will slowly shift its way southwards, so it will brighten up across many areas. Wales, central parts of England should see some sunny spells, even across Northern Ireland. Most of this cloud is likely to linger across the south and also fairly cloudy across Scotland, those showers continuing, and it's also going to be fairly breezy, particularly as we head towards the afternoon. Where we see any sunshine, once again, it should feel warm and pleasant, highs reaching around 17 to 18 degrees Celsius. Through into the evening, we'll see a split in conditions once again. The southern half of the country seeing those clearer skies, so a chance we could see some frost, possibly some mist and fog during the overnight period, and spells of rain continuing across Scotland. For the rest of the week and into the weekend, high pressure dominates, so mostly dry, but often quite cloudy.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. Near Tain, road users should be cautious as both directions of the A9 are restricted due to a collision. In East Riding of Yorkshire, the M62 eastbound entry slip at junction 35 is closed following an accident, with normal traffic expected today. In Surrey, a lane is shut on the M25 anti-clockwise between junctions 9 and 8 due to a load spillage. On the A500 northbound in Staffordshire, delays are caused by a vehicle crossing the central reservation. A 7.5-tonne weight restriction on the M48 is in place until further notice. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Welcome back. It's 3:37. You're with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News. Now, we're back at the Tory party conference, and so far, 20 councillors have defected to Reform UK, and
women are actually talking now, and we're not going to be put up by one person, one man, actually interrupting.
a trans rights heckler tried to spoil the party earlier on. What do the other party members make of what's been happening today? Well, let's cross live now to that conference and pick up with GB News' political editor, Chris Hope, I believe, has another guest for us. Chris, over to you.
That's right, Martin. Yeah, we're still going at the party conference. It ends tomorrow. With me now is Stuart Andrew, who's the Shadow Health Secretary. Stuart Andrew, briefly on those defections, 20 people defected from the Tory party councillors to Reform UK in about a 3-hour period this morning. Disaster for the Tories.
Well, look, I'm not going to say anything else than it's disappointing. Of course it is. But I do hope that sometimes, at some point, they will start to reflect that actually, you know, Reform may have a similar view to them on things like immigration, but when it comes to sort of being fiscally prudent, well, we're seeing a different story coming out of Reform. You know, they're not talking about saving the country's money. They're not talking about having restraints on when it comes to things like the 2-child benefit cap. And if you're a Conservative, you believe that the public's money that we are given by them to spend on public services should be spent wisely and should be spent sensibly. I'm not hearing that from Reform, so I wonder how long some of those people
It's a vote of no confidence confidence in your leader, Kemi Badenoch.
Well, no, I don't think it is. We've got, what I'm hearing here actually is a lot of people saying they thought her opening speech was really good. They've been impressed by the fact that she's gone round so many of the fringes, the receptions, and given upbeat messaging and good speeches. So actually, the people I've been speaking to here have been quite impressed by what they've seen.
You mentioned the fiscal difference. It seems that tax and spend where you divide, but you're so similar to Reform UK on ECHR withdrawal, Climate Change Act being removed, DEI being combated. Isn't there more that unites you than divides you? And shouldn't you come together before the next election to fight Labour and the Lib Dems?
Well, the argument I put there is that we do the detail work. It's easy to say we're just going to leave the ECHR, like that's going to solve all of the problems we've been seeing.
Yeah.
What's been clear, because we've done the homework on this, we've got great advice from a very respected KC that shows that it will be part of the solution, but it is not the entire answer to the question that we've got to sort out. And that is why we're saying that is just one element. It has to come with a host of other policies. Not hearing any of that from Reform.
Robert Jenrick, the Shadow Junsworth in Birmingham, he said that when he went there, he noticed that it was one of the worst integrated places he's ever been to. In fact, in an hour and a half of filming, he said he didn't see another white face. Why is he saying that? That sounds quite divisive. I know he did go on to say it wasn't about colour or skin or faith and the rest of it, but making that point about race is divisive, isn't it?
Well, I think that's the point, is that the further comments he made are not being reported in the same way.
Well, we are on GB News.
I know you are. Thank you for that, because actually what he's saying is it's not about race, it's not about colour, it's not about religion, it's about integration. Now, my former constituency, I saw great work where the Muslim, the Sikh, Hindu communities and white British were working together to bring communities together. That's what he's highlighting.
So it's right to raise it.
It's right to raise it.
To say, why can't we be more cohesive?
Let's
bring
integrate.
It together.
Unite our communities.
You are the Shadow Health Secretary. We've heard nothing on health from your party in a year. The ground has been made by Labour, who are strong on health, and by Reform UK, who are not sure whether they may be bringing in some form of social contract there. You pay for elements of your health policy. Do you care about health as a party? I say this because your speech was 760 words long. Robert Jenrick's speech was 2,800 words long, more than 3 times the length of yours. There's a feeling that you're avoiding health, even if that's one of the top 3 areas that we as Brits care about.
Well, let me give you a cast iron guarantee we are not ignoring health. And my speech may have been short, but the reason...
But why is it short?
Well, because what I wanted...
It's so much money, the NHS.
Absolutely, and that's why I wanted to make sure it wasn't just about me talking about the health service. I wanted to bring in the experts. So we heard from 4 individual experts, a GP talking about primary care, tech person who knows how to get AI and all of that into it, an expert in social care. We really care about the NHS. We care about social care. I do, because I used to work in the hospice movement, and I saw day in, day out the amazing work that they do. And I've got ageing parents now, and I see how important the NHS and social care is for them. And it's with that passion that I've been going around so many of the fringes to engage with the sectors to say, help us develop the policies that will make the NHS.
I was in Birmingham in 2006. Maybe you were there when David Cameron said the 3 things he cares about is NHS. Remember that moment? And you're saying there in your speech just now that the NHS will be free at the point of delivery in the next Conservative government. So that's a manifesto pledge for your party, which does divide you from Reform UK.
Yeah, because one of the things that really annoys me is that sometimes you get these cheap accusations that we want to privatise the NHS. I want to make clear that the fundamental principle of you going to get the service that you need, you've paid for it through your taxes. It's not government money, it's taxes. What I want to ensure is that we spend that money in a much, much better way, and that's why I'm engaging extensively with clinicians and with charities to hear where they think we could be better spending money.
NHS safe in your hands if you become an ex-government.
I'd be passionate about it.
Just finally, and who is your next Prime Minister? Will it be Kemi Badenoch? From about a month's time, you can put letters of no confidence in Kemi Badenoch if you want to change that leader. What's your advice to colleagues who might do that?
I don't think they will. I mean, what I'm hearing here is people are saying we're starting to see the considered deep work that Kemi started, you know, the policy renewal programme. I know people said, oh, you need to come out with everything now, but what she's showing is the announcements we make are backed by evidence, they're detailed evidence, and it's about how we're going to implement it. For too long, I've heard governments of all colours say, make big policy announcements and never talk about how are you going to do it, and that's what frustrates the public. Kemi's doing this in a different way, and that's why she will be leading us into the next election and be our next Prime Minister.
And no deals with Reform UK.
We won't need one, we'll win.
Well, you will need them, though.
We won't.
In some seats, you're splitting the right voting and the left shooting 5 more years of Keir Starmer. Is that what you want?
I've been a Member of Parliament now for 15 years, and I have been told every single time the election comes that I was going to lose my seat, and I got back each time through hard work, good campaigning, and being there to show people that we're going to deliver for them. That's exactly what we'll do over these next few years.
And just very finally, this is your second conference in opposition. Is it an upbeat occasion? It feels quite deathly in parts.
Well,
to me anyway. I've done a lot of them, let me tell you.
Yeah, well, so have I. I mean, I've been around a long time, and I remember the conference in 1998 after that defeat, and I have to say that was not a good conference.
That was the last century, by the way. We've moved on a bit since then.
But equally, what I have been really surprised about, because I did think this is going to be difficult for us, of course, it's a different environment for us. We're not in government, we're in opposition, and we're sort of facing up to all of that. But actually, speaking to the members, what they're saying to me is, actually, I'm surprised at how actually upbeat they feel about it, because they feel like they're being asked to engage in the future direction of our party, and that's good.
Stuart Andrew, great to talk to you, the new Shadow Health Secretary. Thank you for joining us. Stuart Andrew there with an upbeat note from the Tory party. For you, Martin.
Yeah, certainly keeping his packer up, perhaps against all the odds. Thank you very much, Chris Hope there. We'll cross back to you later in the show. And, of course, stay tuned for Chris Hope's superb exclusive with Kemi Badenoch. You will not want to miss that. He really does give her a good grilling now, coming up next. Yes, GB News has exclusive access to the frontline officers leading the fight back against London's phone theft epidemic. But first, if you're in search of some holiday sun this year, then here is the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Looking ahead to tomorrow across southern parts of Europe, there's a lot of fine weather around. A few spots of rain here and there, a couple of showers starting to push their way into parts of Portugal, maybe around some coastal parts of Spain. Otherwise, a generally fine picture here. Also generally dry across much of Italy as well. Further east into parts of Greece, also around Croatia, a few showery bursts, but a lot of that clearing away. So actually, as we go through the end of the week into the weekend, it's looking dry for many of us and warm in the sunshine.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
Only on GB News.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Liz Mitchell, MBE, gracing us with her presence on the sofa this morning. Liz, so good to have you with us.
I am happy to be here.
You have the most incredible voice, a voice of a generation, the whole disco era. It is down to you. What do you think has made your songs so timeless? I mean, everybody knows them, don't they?
Everybody
knows them. Everybody.
One thing I'm very grateful for is the temper of our music, because it seems to be very friendly, warming, and even our slow songs. I was playing one just the other day for my 2-year-old grandson, and he said, more. I was so happy.
I'm with him on that. There's a real sense with your music, though, that it is uplifting.
Yes.
And you feel happy listening to it. I mean, despite whatever it is you're singing about, almost, it's just there's a joy to it.
Yes, and that is really a gift, I think, that most artists would want to have, is that when they make their music that is lasting and that is bringing happiness to people. Because for me, that's the whole point of singing. You know, you should be able to make the people you're entertaining feel happy, hear something good, forget the pain for a moment and just want to dance and just feel good.
And Boney M music is all over TikTok, isn't it? It's being remixed all the time. How do you feel watching your music being reinvented like that?
It is really wonderful. This has been going on since the 90s, well, even before the 90s, people were remixing our songs. So it's the uniqueness of the vocals, because that's what is given to them, just the plain vocals, and then they put new music on it, and it still sounds like Boney M.
The People's Channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. We've got some breaking news for you now, and it's this. The Crown Prosecution Service has said that it will appeal against the decision of the Chief Magistrate to throw out the terrorism case against the kneecap rapper Liam O'Hanna. Just to repeat that, breaking news there. The Crown Prosecution Service has said it will appeal against the decision of the Chief Magistrate to throw out the terrorism case against kneecap rapper Liam O'Hanna. You recall that case collapsed dramatically at the last minute due to an insufficient amount of evidence, a technical error. Seems the CPS is going back for a second nibble at that case. Now, earlier on today, the Conservative politician Andrew Boff has criticised a session on gender identity at the Conservative Party conference after he heckled the panel, including the former Olympic swimmer Sharon Davis, MBE. Have a listen to this interview.
Well, I've been to a session of the conference, and it was called a debate, and it was called Gender Critical, the meaning of sex. And it wasn't really a debate, it was curated hatred. There were no voices from trans people on the stage. There were no voices from the other side of the argument. And I felt I needed to address the imbalance in that debate. Why aren't they on stage? Why aren't you hearing their voices? How are they going to be included? You're talking about just exclude. What about including trans people and understanding that they have rights too? What we had in the conference hall today was one side of the argument with hateful little anecdotes in order to support their miserable case.
Is it nice of a man to mansplain to a women's panel about women's issues? You know, as a bloke to another bloke, take a day off. Let the girls sort this one out. I think they're the ones who are allowed to talk about the invasion of women's-only spaces. They're the ones who are allowed to talk about women's safety. And I think it should be a man's job to perhaps support them on that and not heckle them at their own event. That's just me. Also, astonishing scenes today on British university campuses. Take a look at this. We have a situation here where it's the second anniversary today, of course, of the Hamas terrorist invasion of Israel that brutalised, murdered and kidnapped over 1,200 individuals. Today, British campuses across the land, students gathering and the usual rabble of outsiders, shouting from the river to the sea, all of the usual slogans being shouted out on the second anniversary. Seriously, is this appropriate on the actual day itself? The Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, has called these kinds of protests un-British. What does that even mean anymore? Does anybody in that crowd there give a toot cahoot about British values or the values of Middle Eastern countries thousands of miles away, clearly now supreme. In the next hour, I'll be joined in the studio by Emily Schrader, the Jewish journalist whose street was bombed 2 years ago, who visited the areas of where people were brutally murdered, for her take ahead of a speech in Westminster later on today. 2 years on from October 7th, have we completely lost track of who this is about? That's next with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Through this evening and overnight, we'll see a bit of a north-south split in our weather, often mild and cloudy towards the south, but to the north of this, clearer air means it's going to be turning chilly as we head through the course of the evening. There'll be some cloud and some spells of rain at times, particularly where we see this frontal system sinking its way southwards. So initially across northern parts of England, northern parts of Wales, and eventually sinking into central and southern parts through the course of the night. So often cloudy here with some spells of drizzle. To the north of this, though, largely dry and plenty of clear skies, so it's likely we'll see some mist and fog by the morning. This mainly across northern England, possibly Northern Ireland, but across Scotland, more cloud once again, plenty of showers moving through here. So a slightly chillier start across northern areas, but to the south, milder, cloudier with some drizzle. It's also going to be a fairly damp start once again across Scotland. Plenty of showers moving through here. These could merge together to bring some more persistent outbreaks of rain at times, but mostly dry across the far east of Scotland. Should be mostly dry too across Northern Ireland, northern parts of England, a chance of some low cloud around at times, particularly as we head towards dawn. And across parts of the south, once again, fairly cloudy. It's probably going to be quite a gloomy start with some drizzle in places. Now, this system once again will slowly shift its way southwards, so it will brighten up across many areas. Wales, central parts of England should see some sunny spells, even across Northern Ireland. Most of this cloud is likely to linger across the south and also fairly cloudy across Scotland, those showers continuing, and it's also going to be fairly breezy, particularly as we head towards the afternoon. Where we see any sunshine, once again, it should feel warm and pleasant, highs reaching around 17 to 18 degrees Celsius. Through into the evening, we'll see a split in conditions once again. The southern half of the country seeing those clearer skies, so a chance we could see some frost, possibly some mist and fog during the overnight period, and spells of rain continuing across Scotland. For the rest of the week and into the weekend, high pressure dominates, so mostly dry, but often quite cloudy.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. The A96 at Moss Todlock is affected with debris in both directions, urging caution. Heavy goods vehicles face a weight limit on the M48. In Surrey, the M25 anti-clockwise between junction 9 and 8 has a lane closed due to a load spillage expected to be resolved tonight. The A500 northbound in Staffordshire has one lane closed after a vehicle crossed the central reservation near the A527 North Junction. And on the trains, South Western Railway services in the Twickenham area face disruption, and Chiltern Railways has delays between London Marylebone and Aylesbury Vale Parkway. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com. Go to GB.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
This is your chance to win a motorhome and cash in our biggest giveaway to date. Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be the proud owner of this 2025 Benamar Primero. It comfortably accommodates 4 people and can be driven on your standard driving licence. Plus, you'll also bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. Make sure you don't miss out. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off-limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
And
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. No, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
A very, very good afternoon to you, and it's 4 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show on GB News, broadcasting live across the UK, all the very latest news, debate and analysis all the way through until 6 p.m. And here's what's coming up on today's show. Kemi Badenoch has put on a brave face at the Tory party conference today, but with rumours of a leadership challenge incoming and the party hemorrhaging voters and councillors to Reform UK. Can she fight back? Well, later on today's show, GB News' Chris Hope will grill the leader of the opposition. And today marks the second anniversary of the Hamas terrorist invasion of Israel. On today's show, I'll be joined by a Jewish journalist whose street was bombed that day as she heads to a London remembrance event later on entitled October the 7th, A Time to Speak.
The camera, my good sir. Free Palestine.
I'm not committing a crime.
Yes, you are.
You're...
Pro-Palestine students rebel today on British campuses, disgusting footage of a London woman cutting down yellow ribbons to commemorate Israeli hostages has gone viral around the world. Well, on today's show, I'll be joined by the Jewish woman who filmed it, who asks, what on earth would drive a person to do that? And the United Nations claims that over 500,000 Gazans are trapped in famine. But is that true? Well, on today's show, I'll be joined by Reform UK's Deputy Leader Richard Tice, who's just returned from the Israeli-Gaza front line. And also on your screens, as you can see, Donald Trump will again host Mark Carney at the White House. Well, the last time Trump suggested that Canada should join the US as its 51st state. Carney said that will never happen. But it's Donald Trump. Anything can happen, and we'll be there live, and that's in your next hour. Well, the show, it's a pleasure to have your company. 2 years ago, of course, Hamas invaded Israel, killing over 1,200, taking hostages, brutalising the population. And today, British students stand in solidarity not with Israel, but with Palestine on British campuses. And footage of a woman in North London cutting down yellow ribbons commemorating those hostages who are about to be imminently freed, potentially, cutting them down has gone viral around the world. What on earth has poisoned the British public to be this way, especially on the second anniversary? Should they all just show some respect and take a day off? Meanwhile, the Conservative Party conference, they can't take a day off. They seem to be scrambling for their lives, with 20 Reform councillors defecting this morning. 2 Reform, from the Conservatives. Later in the show, Kemi Badenoch will sit down with our political editor, Chris Hope. Can Kemi save the day, or is the party over for the Conservatives? Get in touch, gbnews.com/your say is the way to do so. But now it's time for your headlines, and here's Tatiana Sanchez.
Martin, thank you and good afternoon. The top stories and breaking news that the Crown Prosecution Service says it will appeal against the decision of the Chief Magistrate to throw out the case against kneecap rapper Liam Ohana. Ohana had been charged with a terrorism offence for allegedly displaying a Hezbollah flag at a gig at the O2 Forum in Kentish Town in North London last November, but it was dismissed due to a technical error. It is 2 years to the day since Hamas militants stormed into southern Israel, killing 1,200 people and taking 251 hostages. Israelis are gathering across the country to mark the anniversary. At the site of the Nova Festival massacre, Flowers, candles and tributes now line the memorial. Families of those still missing say they'll keep fighting until every hostage is returned. Meanwhile, Israel's military campaign in Gaza continues. More than 67,000 have been killed, with most homes damaged or destroyed. Indirect peace talks between Israel and Hamas have resumed in Egypt as hopes rise for a breakthrough in the Gaza war. Egypt's foreign minister says the talks are centred on creating a security plan for Israel's full withdrawal from Gaza. Negotiators are also seeking to guarantee unrestricted UN aid access to the territory. Cairo says the ultimate goal is to unite the West Bank and Gaza and move closer to a lasting two-state solution. Pro-Palestine protesters, university students from King's College, UCL, LSE and Roehampton are walking out of classes this afternoon in London as they demonstrate on the second anniversary of the October 7th attacks. It comes after the Prime Minister branded the planned protests un-British and urged students to show some humanity. Writing in The Times, he added the UK remains committed to peace with a safe and secure Israel alongside a viable Palestinian state. Elsewhere, Robert Jenrick has caused a stir at the Tory party conference, arriving on stage with a black box and revealing what was inside, a judge's wig. The Shadow Justice Secretary used the prop to call for a crackdown on what he calls activist judges, saying those linked to Open Borders charities are like referees who support the opposition. The Shadow Justice Secretary also launched a blistering attack on Sir Keir Starmer.
We all knew that Keir Starmer would be a bad Prime Minister. But I don't think anyone anticipated he would be this bad. A freebie grabbing, free speech stifling, criminal releasing, tax raising, farmer hating, Brexit betraying, aspiration sapping, sorry excuse for a leader.
Meanwhile, Jenrick says he won't shy away from his comments about not seeing another white face during a visit to Birmingham's Handsworth area. He insists his remarks were about integration, not race, linking poor integration to last week's terror attack in Manchester. Kemi Badenoch defended him, saying there's nothing wrong with making observations, but Labour called his comments a red line. Former Tory Mayor Andy Street said Jenrick was wrong about Handsworth, which he described as a very integrated place. It comes after The Guardian published a leaked recording of Jenrick's remarks from a Conservative dinner in March. Earlier at the Conservative Party conference in Manchester, the hall was barely a third full for the Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp. Opening with a joke about hangovers, Philp admitted past Tory governments made a mistake on immigration. He said legal migration had been too high for too long, and under new leadership things will change. He also defended tougher border control, insisting it's not racist to want security or social cohesion.
For many years now, legal migration has been far too high. High under successive governments, including the last one. It was a mistake. It should never have been allowed to happen. And under new leadership, we pledge it will never happen again.
Nigel Farage told a court that a small boat's migrant said he's going to shoot me in a TikTok video in which the Afghan national said he also wanted to come to England to marry the politician's sister. Fayez Khan, who's 26, is charged with making a threat to kill the Reform UK leader between October the 12th and the 15th last year in a post that Mr Farage said was pretty chilling. A jury at Southwark Crown Court was told today that Khan had a very large presence online, with his videos on TikTok under the username Madapasa amassing hundreds of thousands of views. And police say they've busted an international gang accused of smuggling up to 40,000 stolen phones from the UK to China. In the Met's biggest ever crackdown on mobile theft, 18 suspects have been arrested and more than 2,000 stolen devices seized. The operation began when a victim tracked their iPhone to a Heathrow warehouse, sparking raids on 28 properties across London and Hertfordshire. Officers believe the gang exported up to half of all phones stolen in London, with devices sold abroad for up to £4,000 each. Those are the latest headlines. More in half an hour.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Here's a snapshot of the markets. The pound buying you $1.3413 and €1.1498. The price of gold, £2,964.85 per ounce. The FTSE 100's at 9,495 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Thank you, Tatiana. Now, the Tory party conference is in full swing and MPs are fleeing to reform in droves. Well, certainly their councillors are. Now, Kemi Badenoch says the Conservatives are shedding a lot of baggage, but insists that success will be judged at the next general election. However, Reform UK leader Nigel Farage posted on X earlier saying that the Conservatives are finished as he welcomes new councillors, 20 of them, into his party today. But is Nigel Farage right? Is the Conservative Party finished? Or is there still life in the old party yet? Well, let's cross live now to that conference in Manchester and join GB News' political editor Chris Urban. Chris, I believe you're with the heckler that interrupted the women's rights debate earlier. It all kicked off with Andrew Boff. Over to you.
Yeah, that's right. The concern about Reform UK does hang over this conference. 20, of course, I mean, that was the timing of those 20 defections was arranged by Reform UK to overshadow and draw attention away from this conference. But there is some drama happening too here in the conference hall. Andrew Boff is well known as a Conservative member of the London Assembly, been there since 2008. He's Deputy Chair of the London Assembly. He heckled, didn't he, Suella Braverman, I think at the time the Home Secretary in 2023 in the same venue on the issue of trans rights, and he did it again today. Let's hear what he had to say.
Well, I've been to a session of the conference, and it was called a debate, and it was called Gender Critical, the meaning of sex. And it wasn't really a debate, it was curated hatred. There were no voices from trans people on the stage. There were no voices from the other side of the argument. And I felt I needed to address the imbalance in that debate. Why aren't they on stage? Why aren't you hearing their voices? How are they going to be included? You're talking about just exclude. What about including trans people and understanding that they have rights too? What we had in the conference hall today was one side of the argument with hateful little anecdotes in order to support their miserable case.
Well, that man, Andrew Boff, joins me now on the stand here at GB News stand here in Manchester. Andrew Boff, why were you saying there that this is a curated hatred to members of your party?
Yes, well, in the conference handbook, in the agenda, it said it was a debate, right? Now, it's a funny old debate when there's only one side of the argument.
So what's your complaint? The party only is now accepting the Supreme Court ruling, women and men, women don't have penises, men do.
You always expect Supreme Court rulings. I'm talking about what the party's done here, which is trying to present just one side of an argument, and there are plenty of Conservative members who actually think that we should be inclusive of trans people. And so it said it was a debate, so it wasn't a debate. So I made it a debate.
Yes, and you're wearing your T-shirt now
I made it a debate.
Listeners on the radio for GB News. Trans rights are human rights, your T-shirt says. Were you thrown out? What happened after those remarks?
I wasn't thrown out. I just commented where I thought a comment was needed.
And how did the members react to you? I couldn't quite see how they were reacting to you.
No, I couldn't, because I was looking at the stage.
Were they thanking you for raising it, or were they not?
I think certainly people in the walking around the conference were. You know, conference chamber is a self-selecting group.
No, it's not. Anyone can go in. I've been there enough times.
Yeah, but you don't go in if you don't approve of what's being talked about. Unusually, I went in. Yeah, they could. But there's also some other attractions in the lovely city of Manchester that they decided they wanted to go to. Absolutely, it is. Well, so far. But walking around, I've had a lot of support from people because even if people don't agree with my view, they do agree with free speech.
Yes.
And a debate should have two. You do. And a debate should have two sides of the argument. You should hear the other side. There was no other side. And I just made it a debate. I tried to provide the other side of the argument.
I wonder if the lady behind me, were you on stage with Mr. Boff? You were? Well, what do you, but Mayor, I don't know if we can get a microphone to this lady here, but how do you respond to when you were being heckled? What's your name, please, madam?
It's Marion Calder. I'm Director for Women Scotland.
How do you react when Mr. Boss shouts at you?
He has absolutely the ability, I believe, in free speech, and he's entitled to his own views. I think we should be able to listen to alternate views, and maybe heckling from the floor is probably not the best way of handling discussion.
Yeah.
Well,
Andrew, what's your response?
Yes, absolutely. I wouldn't have needed to have heckled if the other side of the argument was on the stage, but it wasn't, was it?
Did you hear me say trans rights, transgender, trans women at all during our speech, or did you hear it from any other speakers?
I didn't hear about how you were going to include trans people in any decision.
Because it was about women's rights. Not a single one of the speakers on the stage said anything about trans.
Really? But it was specifically gender critical. And gender critical...
I disagree, it's women's rights.
Well, that was the title of the debate. I read the title. It said gender critical, and that is in itself... Then, well, you didn't. My argument is not with you. My argument was with the party who put an item on that says gender critical, and they didn't put any trans people apart of it, because the gender critical ideology is about excluding trans people from public life.
Well, maybe the argument is with the party about the naming of things, but it was about women's rights.
I didn't heckle you. I heckled the other two. I heckled the other two.
It was 3 times while we were actually speaking, and when I was trying to explain what was actually happening in Scotland and legislation, etc. And it is very disconcerting when you're actually having a singular male voice coming from the crowd.
Would you apologise, Andrew Boff, for heckling Marion and the others?
How do you know what my sex is?
Pardon?
How do you know what my sex is?
I can look at you and I make a gauge on the size of your hands, I look at your beard, and I will make a kind of decision.
Well, that's right. And that's how I decide to treat people, based upon what they look like and how they present,
how I treat someone
and
is
how they identify,
and how they identify. It's about how they actually kind of treat me.
And I respect how they identify.
Mary,
that's not how life really works. Women actually have to make decisions. You may be the loveliest person on this planet, I wouldn't know this. Or you could be a serial killer. You don't walk around with kind of statements on your head. Women may have to make kind of decisions about how they actually deal with the opposite sex, purely on just kind of being able to identify what sex people are. Now, and unfortunately, people don't go around saying I'm a good person, I'm a bad person. So women do have to make that decision on the basis of sex, because it's just self-preservation.
And absolutely, and the statistics would say that they've got nothing to fear from trans women.
Trans women are men, so there's nothing to actually show in any form of statistics that they are actually any lesser ability of offending.
Nothing to show.
No, show me. There's nothing. This is ridiculous. It's a bad conversation, because neither one of us are going to pull statistics out of our back pockets at the moment in time. But what we can both understand is that men are at the greater risk of women. I have absolutely no issues with trans men, which most of the general public would understand as females, coming in using our spaces, because they're female. I have no risk. I have no fear of risk for them. I have no fear of pregnancy or rape from my fellow siblings that may identify as opposite sex, but there's little risk. So I'm not worried about having trans men share my spaces at all.
Because your campaign is built on the idea of fear of trans men,
based on the idea.
Women. The whole campaign is built on fear of making
you give it away,
fear.
Because the campaign is actually built on sex, and the reason why women need to actually single-sex spaces. I have no fear of trans men who are female. I have the exact same fear of trans women than I do of any other men. It makes no difference.
And of course, wherever that provision of a single-sex space is, they can always choose to be single-sex based upon
If they're a service provider and a workplace employer, you have to actually provide. Where it actually states the service is for females, it is for females. And for males, because we've also got to understand that males also entitled to their actual own services too, and or groups. I don't think it's fair that gay men's organisations are being targeted by young females that are identifying as being gay male. I think this is absolutely ridiculous.
I'm a member of quite a few gay organisations. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, then maybe you should be listening to other gay men's. Gay Men's Network, LGBT Alliance, there are many. So they've got young females that are now identifying on gay dating apps, saying that they are young gay men. They are females.
So?
But this may not be an issue to you. You may be bisexual. For others, this may be really problematic.
Don't label me.
You mean that you're actually saying? If you're a gay man and actually saying that you're also identified with that you would actually sexually attracted to a female, then clearly you're not. You mean homosexual? You're bisexual.
This is quite an interesting discussion. I love it when it's all about me. But actually,
well, you did try to make it about yourself when you actually started kind of shouting at us when we were on the main stage earlier.
I don't know what you're talking about. I've never seen that threat. I mean,
well, maybe you haven't, but others have, because it's not all about you, Andrew. There's other people involved in this.
Yes, absolutely there is. There's trans people who currently...
Are you trans?
It's nothing to do with you.
But why are you sitting there talking on behalf of them?
I'm not talking on behalf of them.
You shouted down at the conference this morning saying that you're actually talking on their behalf.
I'm not talking on their behalf. They can speak for themselves.
Well, clearly they didn't, because you actually the one that actually kind of interrupted the conversation this morning.
Yeah, I appreciate
Chris,
you heckling me.
time.
I don't worry about that.
I think we're... Andrew, if I may say so,
the real point is, it's the party that didn't give the voice to trans people.
You stop the voices of women.
I do not. Did I stop you today now?
You did your you did your best.
You've just had a spiel, haven't you? And I haven't interrupted you. So all this bull.
Thank you, Mariam. Thank you very much, Andrew. Well, I think the party's learned a lesson there. Have that debate on the stage. Some applause now from behind me at GB News. All happening here, Martin. Have that debate in a conference hall. Well, we don't mind at GB News. Whatever free we are, the home of free speech.
Well, it's quite the impromptu debate there, Chris. Well done. I think he got his comeuppance there. I think that's what you call having your backside served to you. If you're going to stand up and heckle a bunch of women, listen to the women. It was a debate about women's rights. Why stop mansplaining your way through it? Maybe it's time for us men to take a day off or at least support women. OK. We're now going to go to the Great British Giveaway, and it's your chance to win a brand new four-berth motorhome worth over £74,000 plus a whopping 30 grand in tax-free moolah. Here's how you could win it.
This is your chance to win a motorhome and cash in our biggest giveaway to date. Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be the proud owner of this 2025 Benamar Primero. It comfortably accommodates 4 people, comes with integrated bathroom and kitchen areas, has plenty of storage and can be driven on your standard driving licence. Plus, you'll also bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like, taking the total prize value of this Great British Giveaway over a whopping £104,000. Make sure you don't miss out. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Blinds close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. The winner will be contacted live on GB News, week commencing 10th November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Still to come, buckle up as Donald Trump hosts the Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney once again. It could be bad news for Mr Carney. And also, I'll be joined in the studio by an Israeli-American journalist, Emily Schrader. She's been incognito at a pro-Palestine protest earlier today at King's College London. She joins me next here in the studio. You with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News Business News Channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
Only on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome back. Time is 4:26 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, the Prime Minister has marked the second anniversary of the October the 7th attacks in Israel, the terrorist invasion by Hamas, with a warning that anti-Semitism is on the rise in Britain. And the Israeli-American journalist Emily Schrader went undercover at a pro-Palestine protest at King's College London earlier on today. You can see Emily there actually with the flag, surrounded by people with hoods, sending out the usual barrack of abuse. I'm delighted to be joined in the studio now by Emily Schrader. Emily, welcome to the show. Obviously, it's 2 years on from that terrible pogrom by Hamas. You went down to King's College London there to witness what was on offer from the so-called intellectual cream of Britain. What did they say to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So as stated at the beginning, a little bit incognito, but I couldn't stay silent in response to what I was hearing and seeing, which were open calls for intifada, which is a violent uprising, calls for from the river to the sea, which is an eliminationist rhetoric calling for the destruction of the state of Israel. And so because of that, myself and just a few other pro-Israel supporters that were there actually stood up with the Israeli flag. It's really outrageous. It's a disgrace to see something like this on the streets of London, support for terrorism on the anniversary of October 7th. And something really important to remember is that on October 7th, Israel was not in Gaza. There was no occupation of Gaza. In fact, Israel didn't even respond to the largest massacre of Jews since the Holocaust until October 27th. So you cannot say that a protest being held on October 7th is somehow in support of Palestinians, when in fact it's really celebrating the massacre of October 7th.
Emily Schrader, you sat here for 2 hours with me just last week when we saw an Islamic terrorist incident at a synagogue in Manchester. Like, we thought, maybe we hoped, that might be a wake-up call to Britain, to the Prime Minister, to the police, to the general public, just to take a pause and take a day off. Today is the anniversary. They're not taking a day off. They're up in the ante.
No, it's outrageous. And, you know, there are protests that have been planned throughout different European cities. And I was pleased to see that in Germany, they actually canceled the anti-Israel protest that was being held. In Italy, they canceled at least one of them. And yet somehow here in the UK, where we just saw an Islamist terrorist attack, they couldn't do anything about this shameful protest that was openly supporting terrorism, calling for intifada in the streets of London. It's outrageous.
And Emily, you sent me some pictures earlier and some video. We're going to try and get those on our screens if we can. This is very personal to you, that October the 7th attack. You know, you lived in an area that was bombed at that time. So let's go back in time, if we can, to that horrendous invasion. And then you went on in your journalistic work to visit some of the sites of the invasion, of the massacres.
Yeah, so I woke up that morning to rocket alarms, which was at the time pretty unusual for Tel Aviv. I live in South Tel Aviv. We don't get a lot of missiles usually. The Gaza Strip border communities get a lot. But that was how I woke up. And when I looked at my phone, I discovered horrific footage that was already coming in from early in the morning of Hamas terrorists who had invaded southern Israel, that were massacring innocent civilians. And just a few days later, my neighborhood was hit with a missile from the Gaza Strip, direct hit in the area. And the first time I was in that area, in Kibbutz Be'eri, some of the footage that you just saw on the screen, there was still body bags still there. There was blood on the floor from when people had been burned alive, children in front of their parents, parents in front of their children. 1,195 people massacred, 250 kidnapped, 378 slaughtered at a music festival where people went to celebrate from over 40 nationalities on that day. I mean, it's hard to describe the scope of how horrific this incident actually was. And bringing us back to today, we see these protests at a time when 48 hostages are still in the Gaza Strip. It's appalling.
That footage we had on our screens there, we'll get some of it back up now, but some of it was simply too distressing to put out on television. It was literally the post-massacre at the music festival. You know, the bodies at that music site were simply inconceivable. And it's this is your neighbourhood, right? This is at the time.
This is my neighbourhood, and that is the site of a direct hit just next door to my building. In fact, when it happened, I was certain that my building had been hit. The entire ground shook. Everything smelled of gunpowder, of explosive material. And the second I actually went downstairs to see what had happened, another alarm went off, which is something that we see frequently from these terror groups to draw people out and then attack again. So just horrific footage. And then here you see some of the sites in Kibbutz Be'eri. The markings on those buildings, for those who don't understand Hebrew, actually denote the bodies or the number of bodies that they found in those homes. Those are private civilian homes. And I'm sorry that this is so graphic, but what we're seeing now is actually dried blood from someone who had been burned alive in one of those homes. Just horrific scenes, absolutely sickening. I remember that after my first time reporting in that area, I actually went home and was physically ill for pretty much the rest of the day. Again, hard to describe the scope of how evil what we saw that day was. And to see people today not only failing to condemn it, but even celebrating it, celebrating this as if it was something positive for Palestinians, or certainly not for Israelis. It's shocking and heartbreaking.
But even now, Emily Schroeder, some of that footage is just genuinely heartbreaking. There seems to be a state of denial that it even existed. It could be a fabrication, we hear. Greta Thunberg, those kind of people, they haven't ever seen this footage. They perhaps ought to. Do you think maybe if people at British universities today actually sat down and watched some of the truly horrific footage, it's not a conspiracy theory, it wasn't an invention. In fact, Hamas filmed this and graphically put it around the world to further their cause.
That's right. I mean, I think that there are some people who would see a different side of the story if they were exposed to this footage. But, you know, you mentioned Greta, and the first time that Greta tried to illegally enter Israel, they did offer to have her watch this footage, and she actually refused. And unfortunately, that's what we've seen from a lot of people who refuse to just see the reality that's staring them in the face. And I want to emphasize again that if people want to protest, it's legitimate to protest. That's a democratic right. But to do so on a Jewish holiday today, Sukkot, quote, again, to do so on the anniversary, the 2-year anniversary of this horrific massacre, when Israel wasn't even in Gaza, it's just inexcusable.
Can I get your reaction to some footage that's come out? It's gone around the world today. We're interviewing the journalist later on in the show, Miranda Levi. She filmed a woman in North London just on yesterday, cutting down some ribbons from outside. Now, let's have a quick look at this and we'll get your reaction if I could.
You're not going to do this.
Not going to do what?
I'm not committing a crime.
Yes, you are.
You're doing something that is... If I am, then call the police. You call the police and you let them know.
It's hard to have a response to this. I mean, we saw in the initial days after October 7th and the months after people tearing down hostage posters, and now you see people tearing down ribbons for the remaining hostages. You know, there's nothing pro-Palestinian, or that should be pro-Palestinian, about tearing down hostage posters, about removing ribbons that are calling for the release of innocent civilians who were taken from their homes 2 years ago today. It's outrageous. It's disgraceful what's happening, and there should be no excuse for it. And frankly, if they were serious about peace between Israel and the Palestinians, it's something that Palestinian activists should be speaking out against. And instead, we see an embrace of terrorism time and time again.
Okay, Emily Schrader, I know you're talking at an event this evening in Westminster called October the 7th, The Time to Speak, and Alison Pearson will be there. Good luck with that, and thank you for coming to the studio twice, sadly under such circumstances. Emily Schrader, a pleasure once again to have your company. Lots more still to come between now and 5 o'clock, including Donald Trump hosts the Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney. Will they once again decide that Canada should be the 51st state of America? That's next, but first, here's your headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Martin, thank you. The top stories. It's 2 years since Hamas's attacks on Israel, which left 1,200 people dead and 251 taken hostage. Israel's military campaign in Gaza continues, though. More than 67,000 have been killed, with most homes damaged or destroyed. Indirect ceasefire talks are underway in Egypt, with Donald Trump's peace plan on the table. He says there's a really good chance of a deal. 20 Conservative councillors have defected to Reform UK, a major boost for Nigel Farage's party. Kemi Badenoch says the Conservatives are shedding a lot of baggage, but insists success will be judged at the next election. And the Met Police says they've smashed a major phone theft gang in the UK's largest ever crackdown. Officers recovered 40,000 stolen handsets being shipped to China. Those are the latest headlines. For now, more from me at the top of the hour.
For all the latest from GB News whilst you're on the go, get the GB News app. Scan the QR code now to download or visit gbnews.com/app. Hello there, good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Through this evening and overnight, we'll see a bit of a north-south split in our weather, often mild and cloudy towards the south, but to the north of this, clearer air means it's going to be turning chilly as we head through the course of the evening. There'll be some cloud and some spells of rain at times, particularly where we see this frontal system sinking its way southwards. So initially across northern parts of England, northern parts of Wales, and eventually sinking into central and southern parts through the course of the night. So often cloudy here with some spells of drizzle. To the north of this, though, largely dry and plenty of clear skies, so it's likely we'll see some mist and fog by the morning. This mainly across northern England, possibly Northern Ireland, but across Scotland, more cloud once again, plenty of showers moving through here. So a slightly chillier start across northern areas, but to the south, milder, cloudier with some drizzle. It's also going to be a fairly damp start once again across Scotland. Plenty of showers moving through here. These could merge together to bring some more persistent outbreaks of rain at times, but mostly dry across the far east of Scotland. Should be mostly dry too across Northern Ireland, northern parts of England, a chance of some low cloud around at times, particularly as we head towards dawn. And across parts of the south, once again, fairly cloudy. It's probably going to be quite a gloomy start with some drizzle in places. Now, this system once again will slowly shift its way southwards, so it will brighten up across many areas. Wales, central parts of England should see some sunny spells, even across Northern Ireland. Most of this cloud is likely to linger across the south and also fairly cloudy across Scotland. Those showers continuing, and it's also going to be fairly breezy, particularly as we head towards the afternoon. Where we see any sunshine, once again, it should feel warm and pleasant, highs reaching around 17 to 18 degrees Celsius.
Through into the evening, we'll see a split in conditions once again. The southern half of the country seeing those clearer skies, so a chance we could see some frost, possibly some mist and fog during the overnight period, and spells of rain continuing across Scotland. For the rest of the week and into the weekend, high pressure dominates, so mostly dry, but often quite cloudy.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. Currently, there is significant congestion on the A47 northbound between Corriton and Nantgarw, affecting travel times. In East Riding of Yorkshire, all lanes remain closed due to a serious road traffic collision on the M62 eastbound entry slip at junction 35, with normal traffic conditions expected to resume between 5:15 and 5:30 this evening. On the trains, passengers are facing considerable disruptions on Chiltern Railway services running between London Marylebone and Aylesbury Vale Parkway. Additionally, there is a complete halt of all cross-country train services passing through Gloucester. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Welcome back. Time is 4:39. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, we're expecting Donald Trump to be hosting, once again, Mark Carney, the Premier of Canada, in the White House. Remember last time that Donald Trump suggested that Canada should become the 51st state of America. Mark Carney sat there with a rictus grin. Finally, when he got a word, he said that won't happen. Could it happen today? Could there be high drama once again at the White House? Well, I'm joined in the studio, I'm delighted to say, by the US political commentator from Republicans Overseas UK, Jennifer Ewing. Jennifer, it's a pleasure to have you in the studio once again. It's becoming a weekly fixture. I like to see that beautiful stuff. So, anything can happen in the White House. What's on the menu today? And there's a lot of tension still. They parted friends last time through gritted teeth, but they don't particularly like each other. Could that could that animosity once again surface today, do you think?
Well, in many ways, Mark Carney owes the fact that he won back in April to President Trump and his comment about Canada being the 51st state, because I think most people thought it was quite funny the first few times, but my Canadian friends, who like Trump, by the way, are like, tell the guy to shut up, because we had the Conservative candidate, Pierre Poilievre, who was ahead by about 20 points, and every time Trump opened his mouth with the 51st state, Mark Carney went up in the polls. So Mr. Carney should actually be, quite grateful to Trump in many ways. But I don't think either side is expecting too much. This is the second visit that Carney has had to the White House, and I think he just wants to stay in front of him. He still is going to be concerned about the 50% tariffs that the U.S. has on steel and metals, and then the 25% that it has on vehicles. And there have been a lot of Canadian jobs lost because of those. Now, we have the USMCA. Oh, are they there? We have the USMCA, which basically takes about 85% of the trades are not tariffed in such a way. So that's what I believe Carney will be looking for, and what President Trump will be looking for is basically to reduce the deficit between Canada and the United States, and also some leniency on agriculture.
And just to repeat for those tuning in, if you're watching or if you're listening on radio, live pictures there of the White House, that now all too familiar scene of the flags of the USA next to the flag of the nation that's about to be whisked up in the beast. And this time it's Canada's turn for the second time to go for those infamous doors there at the White House. I often wonder, Jennifer Ewing, what must be going through the mind of people when they're in that beast, heading towards the White House? Because say what you like about Donald Trump, anything can happen in those meetings, and it's got to be, is it all part of the art of the deal? We hear all the time about Donald Trump being the disruptor. If you're walking in there expecting to lose, then you're going to go in there happy to lose when you walk out.
Yeah, exactly. I guess it's all about attitude. And I was reading that some Canadian analysts said, everybody up there has read The Art of the Deal. One of the things I would look out for today, in addition to just the tariff talks and everything, is watch for talk about succession in Alberta, which is a Canadian province, and they have a premier called Danielle Smith who gets along with President Trump quite well. They also have the majority of the natural resources, the oil and gas, in Canada. So it's very, very valuable. And again, they're more conservative than Carney's government, and of course, then the previous Premier Justin Trudeau. So
well, Trudeau went super woke on drill, baby, drill, to the point where hardly anything happened. And there's a huge conversation about the gigantic natural resources we have under Canada simply being untouched. And Donald Trump ushering in, saying, if you just did what we did, you could be rich too.
Well, that's exactly right. And so I was thinking that you might even hear this succession of Alberta, because it's, you know, right above, say, Montana, and it's got all those wonderful natural resources.
And it doesn't share the woke politics of the metropolitan areas of Canada.
And they are having a vote, a referendum, sort of like the United Kingdom did with Brexit. They're having a referendum about this time next year. So Canada is a very rare country in that there is a pathway for regions to succeed. So I wouldn't be surprised if Alberta becoming the 51st state is the new Canada becoming the 51st state.
Isn't that fascinating? Just have a little chess move ahead. If Alberta ostensibly uncouples from the political orthodoxy of Canada and is more aligned with Donald Trump's politics, and they have vast resources, they could do a little deal and leapfrog and cut the middleman out. Carney would be obsolete.
That's exactly right. Now, this is all kind of joking around here, but as was the 51st state. You know, Trump was obviously never serious about Canada becoming the 51st state, but I can just see there's so much talk right now, you know, about this Alberta, so I would watch out for that. You know, Carney he won because he really looked like he was going hard in against Trump, you know, and that's how he won. And they thought the conservative Pierre Poilievre was too weak. And he had this theme, I don't know if you play, is somebody coming?
Yeah, we're just going to go to a break now. We're going to wait for Mark Carney to turn up. Jennifer Ewing, please stick with us. There's so much to get talking about. Stick with us here on GB News as we await the arrival of Mark Carney at the White House. Will he get yet another flambeing? That's next with me, Martin Daubney.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Looking ahead to tomorrow across southern parts of Europe, there's a lot of fine weather around. A few spots of rain here and there, a couple of showers starting to push their way into parts of Portugal, maybe around some coastal parts of Spain. Otherwise, a generally fine picture here. Also generally dry across much of Italy as well. Further east into parts of Greece, also around Croatia, a few showery bursts, but a lot of that clearing away. So actually, as we go through the end of the week into the weekend, it's looking dry for many of us and warm in the sunshine.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
So, it is really, really tough, but it's also tough for people who are blind, people who are like pushing buggies, wheelchair users. I mean, my late father was a wheelchair user, and, back in the day, we'd have to sort of get him off the road, and then we'd be in the road, and then we'd have to get him back up onto the pavement again. And that's a big price to pay for somebody who's not prepared to walk around the block and thinks they have the right to, park on the pavement.
Maria, how do you think it should work? Do you think this needs to be a national ban on pavement parking, or do you think it should be led by councils, so councils decide area by area where you're allowed to park?
I think it should be a mix. I think what we should do is have a blanket ban on pavement parking. And then what councils can do is, there's certain roads, I mean, there's one here in Exeter where the road is very narrow and the pavements are very wide. I'm not quite sure why, but, you know, it's perfectly safe to park on there. So like a street like that would be fine. And I think one of the problems at the moment is legislation. It's just so unclear because there's this rule which says that you must not park on the pavement in London and Scotland, but you should not do it elsewhere. So it becomes a bit of a moral maze. And I think that, you know, just to make that clearer about what people should do, because a lot of people sort of think, well, you know, I can do it. And of course, you know, traffic wardens can't do anything about it.
GB News, the People's Channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Time is 4:49. You with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, as we wait the arrival of the Canadian Premier Mark Carney at the White House, live pictures on your screen now of this now infamous set piece, where the American Stars and Stripes there is draped one side of that infamous entrance to the Oval Office and the Canadian flag the other. We're waiting for the beast to hove into view, and then Donald Trump steps out and grasps the world leader by the hand, and then anything can happen in that office. And we get car crashes, we get notes from kings, we get grovelling, sycophantic leaders, we get people going in there, tough talking, soon to be whipped into shape. Anything can happen in these conferences. And I'm joined in the studio by the spokesperson for Republicans Overseas UK, Jennifer Ewing. Jennifer, live pictures there on our screen. We were just getting started about the economy before the break, and I wanted to momentarily zoom out from the meeting we're about to see to talk about the government shutdown that's still in place in America. An astonishing situation where a lot of Republicans were like saying, yeah, shut the damn thing down, because nothing's working in America. And I was saying to you also, the economy in America since the government shutdown has gone gangbusters. The American stock market has gone through the roof.
Well, it has, and, you know, whether there's a correlation or not, I don't know. We were talking about Bitcoin, and for sure there is a correlation between Bitcoin and the government shutdown, because I think people are realizing, you know, we're in trouble, right? Yeah. Look, I think we talked about this last week, that a lot of polls show that as much as 75% of the American public feel that the government shutdown has little or no effect on their life. It's a very different world since the last shutdown in 2018, 2019, which was around Trump's border wall, where people felt really sad for maybe the park ranger or somebody who had lost their job. Whereas this time, you know, the main issue is some Biden-era sort of the idea that there's going to be free health care for illegal aliens. Yeah. And, you know, the average American is struggling to pay his own bills. Health care in the United States, as you know, is not socialized. So if you're some poor guy or some family that can't pay for their own health care, and now your taxes are going to pay for somebody who broke into the country illegally and now gets free health care, that's a problem. So
it is a problem for the government itself. I think in many ways, Jennifer Ewing, it seems to us as Brits, this side of the pond, that the American public have called the bluff of the woke establishment. It's like, we don't want to pay this money anymore. We go to work in the morning, we get up, we pay our taxes. We're seeing people come to the country and siphon money off for free. And by the way, doesn't that echo what's happening here as well? And the voters have said, you know what, shut the whole government down. If we can clear some people out from the federal service, our version of the Home Office, let's get on with it.
Well, you're right. And you'll remember that Trump was joking, like, maybe these Democrats are America first after all, because by the shutting down, he has the ability through his powers to basically do some irreversible changes, which will look like Doge 2.0. You know, Doge did some cutting, but not as much as they had hoped for. So he can just go in there with the Javier Milei chainsaw and cut more. So I think that both parties believe that it's their side that will come out looking good, even without bias. I mean, look, government shutdowns are, in the past, people have said, oh, they're not great, they're not great. You know, a flight could be delayed or this or that. But keep in mind, a lot of the main governmental bodies are still working, right? Like the military is not shut down, for example. So
there's no signs of there being a political breakthrough. I mean, just to remind you, on our screen now, we are waiting for Mark Carney, the Canadian Premier, to hove interview in the Beast and be greeted by Donald Trump at the White House. We've got a quick minute here. There's no sign of that political breakthrough in that government shutdown, is there, at the moment?
No, there's not at all. It is the record is 34 days for the government to be shut down.
Are we 9-10 days in?
Yeah, when was that? Last Thursday, Friday?
Yeah.
October 1st, so I guess a little less than that.
Yeah.
I read recently that they said there's no way it will be rectified before the 13th. And then at some point, someone said, well, maybe they'll just go for the record. So both sides are going to use this to their benefit. And, you know, like everything else, Martin, it depends on where do you get your news, right?
OK, we have to leave it there. Jennifer Ewing, stick with us perhaps after the hour. We're still waiting the Beast to hove interview, Mark Carney, to walk through those doors to face Donald Trump. Anything can happen in the next hour. I'm also joined by Richard Tice. He's just got back from the border of Israel and Gaza with an astonishing report. That's exclusively here on GB News Next. With me, Martin Daubney on GB News.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Through this evening and overnight, we'll see a bit of a north-south split in our weather, often mild and cloudy towards the south, but to the north of this, clearer air means it's going to be turning chilly as we head through the course of the evening. There'll be some cloud and some spells of rain at times, particularly where we see this frontal system sinking its way southwards. So initially across northern parts of England, northern parts of Wales, and eventually sinking into central and southern parts through the course of the night. So often cloudy here with some spells of drizzle. To the north of this, though, largely dry and plenty of clear skies, so it's likely we'll see some mist and fog by the morning. This mainly across northern England, possibly Northern Ireland, but across Scotland, more cloud once again, plenty of showers moving through here. So a slightly chillier start across northern areas, but to the south, milder, cloudier with some drizzle. It's also going to be a fairly damp start once again across Scotland. Plenty of showers moving through here. These could merge together to bring some more persistent outbreaks of rain at times, but mostly dry across the far east of Scotland. Should be mostly dry too across Northern Ireland, northern parts of England, a chance of some low cloud around at times, particularly as we head towards dawn. And across parts of the south, once again, fairly cloudy. It's probably going to be quite a gloomy start with some drizzle in places. Now, this system once again will slowly shift its way southwards, so it will brighten up across many areas. Wales, central parts of England should see some sunny spells, even across Northern Ireland. Most of this cloud is likely to linger across the south and also fairly cloudy across Scotland, those showers continuing, and it's also going to be fairly breezy, particularly as we head towards the afternoon. Where we see any sunshine, once again, it should feel warm and pleasant, highs reaching around 17 to 18 degrees Celsius. Through into the evening, we'll see a split in conditions once again. The southern half of the country seeing those clearer skies, so a chance we could see some frost, possibly some mist and fog during the overnight period, and spells of rain continuing across Scotland. For the rest of the week and into the weekend, high pressure dominates, so mostly dry, but often quite cloudy.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. There's a road traffic incident on the M4 eastbound between junctions 33 and 32, causing lane closures. In Tameside, a vehicle fire on the M60 has shut one lane. A collision on the M1 northbound between junctions 11A and 12 is causing delays. Devon's A30 westbound is closed due to a vehicle fire. On the M20 eastbound, 2 lanes are shut between junctions 8 and 9 because of another collision. And on the trains, there's disruption between London Marylebone and Aylesbury Vale Parkway, and no trains are running through Gloucester. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
You could bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. And if that wasn't enough, you'll also get to drive away in this brand new motorhome. This brand new 2025 Benimar Primero could be yours. It comes with all the mod cons you'd expect from a vehicle worth over £74,000 and comfortably sleeps 4 people. This prize package is worth over £104,000. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie's here.
I'm Michelle Duke, Britain's News Channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's News Channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's News Channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Very good afternoon to you. It's 5 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show on GB News, broadcasting live across the UK. All the very latest news, debate and analysis all the way through until 6 p.m. And here's what's coming up on the show today. Kemi Badenoch has put on a brave face at the Tory party conference, but with rumours of a leadership challenge incoming and the party hemorrhaging voters and 20 councillors today to reform. Can she fight back? Well, in a short moment's time, GB News' Chris Hope will sit down and grill the Tory leader. And breaking news, Donald Trump has just welcomed Mark Carney, the Canadian Premier, as you can see on your screens at the White House. There's Mr. Carney emerging from the beast and going now into the belly of the beast, into the White House. What fate will await him? Well, the last time, Trump suggested that Canada should join the United States as its 51st state. Well, Mr. Carney said that will never happen. But with Trump, anything can happen. We're bringing that conference live as it unrolls. And today, of course, marks the second anniversary of the Hamas terrorist invasion of Israel. On today's show, I'll be joined by a Jewish journalist whose street was bombed on October 7th as she hosts an event tonight called A Time to Speak.
The camera, my good sir. Palestine.
I'm not committing a crime.
Yes, you are.
You're...
Students there protesting at British universities, and also disgusting footage of a London woman cutting down yellow ribbons to commemorate Israeli hostages. That's gone viral. On today's show, I'll be joined by the Jewish woman who filmed that footage, who asks, what on earth would drive a person to even do that? And the United Nations claims that over 500,000 Gazans are trapped in famine. But is that true? Well, on today's show, I'll be joined by Reform UK's Deputy Leader Richard Tice, who's just returned from the Israeli-Gaza frontline, who share exclusive footage of huge convoys of food going into Gaza and ask, is the UN telling the truth? GB News has exclusive access to the frontline officers leading the fight back against London's phone theft epidemic, and that's all coming up in your next hour. Well, the show, it's a pleasure to have your company. So much to get our teeth stuck into this hour. We've got an exclusive sit-down with Kemi Badenoch coming up with Chris Hope. Mark Carney walks into the White House. Richard Tice has just got back from the Israeli-Gaza border, plus that incredible footage filmed by a Jewish woman in London of a person cutting down ribbons, yellow ribbons, to commemorate Israeli hostages. The video footage has gone around the world. I'll be joined by the woman who filmed it to try and get to the bottom why on earth anybody would cut down ribbons, especially today on the second anniversary of the Hamas invasion of Israel. Get in touch usual way. GBNews.com/your say is the way to do so. But now it's your headlines, and here's Tatiana Sanchez.
Martin, thank you. The top stories. US President Donald Trump is hosting Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney at the White House. Carney arriving just moments ago. Carney is aiming to get trade talks back on track after months of negotiations. Canada's the only G7 country yet to reach a trade deal with the US this year. In August, Trump increased tariffs on Canadian goods to 35%, but many are exempt under the current free trade deal. Canada then retaliated with its own tariffs on US exports. Ahead of the meeting, Carney said he and Trump take a different view on trade deficits, but called the US leader very sharp. It's 2 years to the day since Hamas militants stormed into southern Israel, killing 1,200 people and taking 251 hostages. Israelis are gathering across the country to mark the anniversary. At the site of the Nova Festival massacre, flowers, candles and tributes now line the memorial. Families of those still missing say they'll keep fighting until every hostage is returned. Meanwhile, Israel's military campaign in Gaza continues. More than 67,000 have been killed, with most homes damaged or destroyed. Indirect peace talks between Israel and Hamas have resumed in Egypt as hopes rise for a breakthrough in the Gaza war. Egypt's foreign minister says the talks are centred on creating a security plan for Israel's full withdrawal from Gaza. Negotiators are also seeking to guarantee unrestricted UN aid access to the territory. Cairo says the ultimate goal is to unite the West Bank and Gaza and move closer to a lasting two-state solution. Pro-Palestine protesters, university students from King's College, UCL, LSE and Roehampton are walking out of classes this afternoon in London as they demonstrate on the second anniversary of the October 7th attacks. It comes after the Prime Minister branded the planned protests un-British and urged students to show some humanity. Writing in The Times, he added the UK remains committed to peace with a safe and secure Israel alongside a viable Palestinian state. Elsewhere, Robert Jenrick has caused a stir at the Tory party conference, arriving on stage with a black box and revealing what was inside, a judge's wig. The Shadow Justice Secretary used the prop to call for a crackdown on what he calls activist judges, saying those linked to open borders charities are like referees who support the opposition. The Shadow Justice Secretary also launched a blistering attack on Sir Keir Starmer.
We all knew that Keir Starmer would be a bad Prime Minister. But I don't think anyone anticipated he would be this bad. A freebie grabbing, free speech stifling, criminal releasing, tax raising, farmer hating, Brexit betraying, aspiration sapping, sorry excuse for a leader.
Meanwhile, Jenrick says he won't shy away from his comments about not seeing another white face during a visit to Birmingham's Handsworth area. He insists his remarks were about integration, not race, linking poor integration to last week's terror attack in Manchester. Kemi Badenoch defended him, saying there's nothing wrong with making observations, but Labour called his comments a red line. Former Tory Mayor Andy Street said Jenrick was wrong about Handsworth, which he described as a very integrated place. It comes after The Guardian published a leaked recording of Jenrick's remarks from a Conservative dinner in March. Earlier at the Conservative Party conference, the hall was barely a third full for Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp. Opening with a joke about hangovers, Philp admitted past Tory governments made a mistake on immigration. He said legal migration had been too high for too long, and under new leadership things will change. He also defended tougher border control, insisting it's not racist to want security or social cohesion.
For many years now, legal migration has been far too high. High under successive governments, including the last one. It was a mistake, It should never have been allowed to happen. And under new leadership, we pledge it will never happen again.
Let's take you straight now to the White House, where Donald Trump and Mike Carney are speaking.
We have some natural conflict, but we will probably work that out. But we've had a very strong relationship, and your hosting of the various countries that showed up, that was a beautiful job you did, and I appreciate it very much. We're going to be talking about trade. We're going to be talking about a lot of different things. We'll certainly be talking about Gaza. We're in very serious negotiations to, I guess you could say, depending on the way you count, 3,000 years. You could say 500 years. You could say, but that it's been raging for a long time. And I think there's a possibility that we could have peace in the Middle East. It's something even beyond the Gaza situation. We want a release of the hostages immediately, etc. And so our team is over there now. Another team just left, and other countries, literally every country in the world has supported the plan.
Yep.
I don't think there's anybody that hasn't, actually, not that I've seen. But there's a real chance that we could do something, so you may have some questions on that later. But in the meantime, we'll spend some time and we'll make some deals and we'll do some things that are good for both of our countries. And Mark, it's an honor to have you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. If I may, you kindly hosted me and some of my colleagues a few months ago, and I said at the time, you are a transformative president. And since then, the transformation in the economy, unprecedented commitments of NATO partners to defense spending, peace from India, Pakistan through to Azerbaijan, Armenia, disabling Iran as a force of terror, and now, and I'm running out of time, but this is in many respects the most important.
The merger of Canada and the United States.
That wasn't where I was going. On this solemn day of commemoration of the horrific attacks of October 7th, for the first time in decades, hundreds of years, thousands of years, this prospect of peace that you've made possible. Canada stands foursquare behind those efforts, and we'll do whatever we can to support
Very
that.
nice.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mark, very much. Any questions?
Is there any, what would it take for you to drop or lower your tariffs on Canadian sectors, including aluminum and steel?
Well, we're going to be talking about that with the Prime Minister. We'll be talking about tariffs. We'll be talking about a lot of that, but that's for a little bit later on. I want to just acknowledge our great ambassador. Is he doing a good job?
He's doing a good job.
Otherwise, I'll get him out of there so fast. No, you have a
Is it the White House's position that furloughed workers should be paid for their back pay?
I would say it depends on who we're talking about. I can tell you this, the Democrats have put a lot of people in great risk and jeopardy, but it really depends on who you're talking about. But for the most part, we're going to take care of our people. There are some people that really don't deserve to be taken care of, and we'll take care of them in a different way. Okay? Thank you.
Mr. President, in your opinion, why has Canada and the United States failed to reach an agreement up until now?
Well, it's a complicated agreement, more complicated maybe than any other agreement we have on trade, because, we have natural conflict. We also have mutual love. We have great love for each other. I love this. I love Canada and the people of Canada. And Mark feels the same way about here. The problem we have is that they want a car company and I want a car company, meaning the U.S. wants a car company. And they want steel and we want steel. And, so in other countries, they're very far away, and there's no problem. You can compete and you can do. We don't like to compete because we sort of hurt each other when we compete, and so we have a natural conflict. It's a natural business conflict. Nothing wrong with it, and I think we've come a long way over the last few months, actually, in terms of that relationship. So when it comes to trade, the United States was always giving everything. They gave everything to Canada. They would let car companies leave here and go to Canada. But that hurts the United States. And, other presidents didn't see that. They weren't business-oriented. They might have been good politicians in some cases, not in all cases. They were bad at both. But it's a very natural conflict, and it's something that we're working out.
Mr. President,
offered a lot of compromise this summer. Are you willing today to offer some compromise to Canada, maybe on steel, on aluminum?
Well, we've made compromise, and we've made some compromise even on steel. But, you know, we have the same basic authority and the same basic, this could be also a little bit of a conflict with other countries all over the world on steel, because we want to make our own steel. We don't want to bring steel in for the most part, but we will bring it in, and we do bring it in. We continue to bring it in from Canada, but there is a tariff to pay. And I think that would be a normal thing to say. But we've come a long way. I think, Howard, we can truly say, do you want to make a comment on that?
Well, I think the opportunity to work together, and as you said, there's conflict. You know, why do we make cars in Canada? You've called that out, and you've addressed that. So there are places we should work together, and there are places that we have natural conflict.
It's a tough situation because we want to make our cars here. At the same time, we want Canada to do well making cars. So we're working on formulas, and I think we'll get there.
Canadians are refusing to go to the U.S. The numbers are down like 23% in the first 7 months of the year. What do you say to Canadians that don't want to go to the U.S. now because of your 51st state talk, because of the trade war, the tariffs?
Yeah.
And
Well,
the fear
I
of
understand it. Look, I understand that, and Americans don't want to buy cars that are made in Canada. You know, I mean, we have the same conflict. So there isn't. It's something that will get worked out. There's still great love between the two countries, but you know, American people want product here. They want to make it here. Detroit was emptied out and moved to Canada, moved to Mexico, moved to other places, not just Canada, and now they're all moving back. You know, they're moving back. We have right now, I was just telling Mark, we have 17 trillion, but it's really much higher. That was as of a couple of months ago. Yeah. We have over $17 trillion being invested now in the United States. As an example, Biden, he was the worst president we've ever had, but they had less than $1 trillion in 4 years. We have more than 17 trillion in 8 months. 8 months. And I think that number is going to be $22 trillion. There's never been anything like that in the history of the world for any country, not even close. You know, if you did 1 trillion in a year, that's pretty good. We're going to do over 20. And it's coming in with AI. It's coming in with auto plants. You know, we're building auto plants, a lot of auto plants in the U.S. It's coming in for a lot of reasons. It's coming in because of the fact, I think the November 5th election was a big factor, and I think the tariffs are a big factor. And again, we want Canada to do great, but you know, there's a point at which we also want the same business. We're competing for the same business. That's the problem. That's why I keep mentioning one way to solve that problem is a very easy way. But we're competing for the same business. He wants to make cars, we want to make cars, and we're in competition. And the advantage we have is we have this massive market. So it's a, you know, it's quite an advantage.
And that would be, you know, a very long-standing law that's been on the books.
Yeah, well, it's been invoked before, as you know. If you look at Chicago, Chicago's a great city where there's a lot of crime. And if the governor can't do the job, we'll do the job. It's all very simple. They probably had 50 murders in Chicago over the last 5, 6, 7 months. Many people were shot. And then the governor gets up and he says, well, we can handle it. They can't handle it. They don't know what they're doing. The mayor is grossly incompetent. He's at a 4% approval rating in Chicago. He's at a 4%, lowest approval rating, lower than even de Blasio had, which is hard to believe in New York. I thought de Blasio would always maintain that record, but the Chicago guy is even lower. So I think that we want safe cities. If you look at D.C., you would right now, Mark, you could go out, take your family out to dinner. You could walk right down the middle of the street. There is no crime in D.C. When I got here, this place was a raging hellhole where people would come from Canada, people would come from other places and end up getting shot. Nobody's being shot. The National Guard's been unbelievable. I mean, they are strong, tough guys. You know, we won something at the Supreme Court, which is a big deal, merit. Everything now in this country is merit-based. I didn't think I'd ever see it again. And we have our soldiers are merit-based too, and they're central casting. And they walk through that town, and I'll tell you what, this place is safe. It's beautiful. Now we're in Memphis, and the same thing's happening. You're getting the reports. The bad guys are saying, we don't want anything to do with this. And we're removing many people. In D.C., we took out 1,700 career criminals and sent them back to the countries from which they came, mostly led out by Biden and his people that had an open border policy. And, you know, Canada, you suffered because of that, too, because they'd come here and they'd go into Canada also. So we're like a buffer for that in terms of Canada suffered greatly by Biden and the open border, the policy of open border, totally unchecked, totally unvetted. And these people were, you know, if you got 5%, 2%, now you were getting a lot of bad people. And we now have a closed border. You've done well. Yep. We have a closed border, and it's a really closed border. In fact, for 4 months, I don't even know if this is possible, but the figures were released. 0 people were able to come into the United States from the southern border. 0. And as you know, we've taken a very hard stand on drugs. This is also benefiting you. A lot of we call them the water drugs, the drugs that come in through water. They're not coming. There are no boats anymore. Frankly, there are no fishing boats. There's no boats out there, period. If you want to know the truth, we're saying, does anybody go fishing anymore? The fact is, we knocked out, probably saved at least 100,000 lives, American lives, Canadian lives, by taking out all those boats coming in. So it's, and now they don't come in that way anymore. Now they'll come in other ways, and we're not going to allow that either. So we've done a great job on that, but on crime, Chicago's a great city, but you can't be a great city if you have murders and if you have a lot of problems, and they do. And they have an incompetent policy, just like they had open border policy. Anybody could come in. They came in from prisons. They came in from mental institutions, drug dealers. They came in from all over the place, and we don't have that anymore. This country is becoming we're a very strong country. Look, financially speaking, I would say that because of the tariffs, because of the election, because of the policy, because of the great, big, beautiful deal, it's what I added the word great because it really is. It's the biggest bill ever passed in the history of our country. We don't need another bill. It's the biggest tax cuts. I mean, when you think no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime for the people. But far beyond that, what it does is incentivizes auto plants and AI and all of the things that nobody's ever passed a bill like it. We don't need another bill. We don't need any more bills. I said, let's get it all at once. I was greatly helped by our Speaker, Mike Johnson, and by the Senate. I'll tell you what, John Thune's been, both of those guys have been incredible. And we got a bill passed that I said, let's see if we can get it all done. Because these Democrats are like insurrectionists, okay? They're so bad for our country. Their policy is so bad for our country. I said, let's see if we can get it all done. And everybody said it's not doable. Because it's the biggest bill ever passed in the history of our country. And we got it all done. We don't need anything else. We got everything we want. And now, because of that, that's a big reason why the companies are coming in. You know, 1 year depreciation, 1 year write-off, 1 year expensing. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. So they're coming in from all over the world. But to have a great country, you can't have crime. And we don't have crime, but we have cities where there's tremendous crime. And Chicago's one of them. And if the governor can't straighten it out, we'll straighten it out. Thank you. A question for the President.
Do you remain committed to?
Mr. Prime Minister, I'd like to know how come the UK and the European Union have succeeded to sign deals and bring the tariffs down, and Canada still hasn't been able to do the same?
Yeah, because they're not located right next to each other. It makes it. In many cases, it's much better and easier. But
yeah, if I may, let's be clear about the relationship as it stands right now. We are the second largest trading partner of the United States. We do a lot of trade going across the border where we're cooperating, first thing. Secondly, we are the largest foreign investor in the United States. $500 billion in the last 5 years alone, probably $8 trillion in the next 5 years if we get the agreement that we expect to get. Thirdly, there are areas, as the President just said, where conflict, maybe not so much conflict, we compete. There are areas where we compete, and it's in those areas where we have to come to an agreement that works. But there are more areas where we are stronger together, and that's what we're focused on. And we're going to get the right deal. Right deal for America, right deal, obviously, from my perspective, for Canada.
Including one thing that, wait a minute, easy, wait. So one thing where we are working very closely is the Golden Dome. That's the protective mechanism, and you see how that works. It's unbelievable. Ronald Reagan wanted to have it, and at that time they didn't have the technology, even close to the technology, but he was advanced, and we'll be working together on a Golden Dome for the two countries, and it's something that I think is going to be very important, especially when you look at the world, you look at what's happening. We want to have that protection. It's really amazing. The technology is unbelievable.
Mr. President, why do you say some federal workers should not get their back pay? Why do you say some?
Well, you're going to have to figure that out, okay? Ask the Democrats that question. Go ahead.
Mr. President, just to follow up there, I mean, the law says that when the government is reopened, that workers will receive their back pay. So are you going to define the law there, or what do you?
I follow the law, and what the law says is correct, and I follow the law.
Mr. President, will Canada be leaving empty-handed, or will will Mr. Carney be leaving Washington with a deal on tariffs?
I think they're going to be very happy. We have a lot of things that we're working on that people don't talk about. They talk about, competitiveness. She's a very competitive person. And they talk about things that we don't necessarily agree on. But I think they're going to walk away very happy. I think so.
Signed, there's been a minimum tariff that countries have got. When USMCA gets renegotiated, do you want a minimum tariff on goods between Canada and the U.S.?
Well, we're going to have tariffs between Canada, and they have them with us. I will say with our farmers, as you know, they went up to as much as 400%, 250, 300, and even one at 401. We found one having to do with a very small product, but it was high. So we've always had tariffs between the two of us, and actually Canada was charging us very high tariffs on our agricultural things, a lot of our agricultural product, and that's one of the things that we talk about for bringing that down. So this is a mutual thing, but we've been charged tariffs. Look, we're the king of being screwed by tariffs, just so you understand. And I'm not talking about with Canada. I'm talking about with countries all over the world. When you look at Europe, when you look at China, when you look at all of the almost every country charged the U.S., we didn't charge them because we were led by stupid people in many cases. Stupid people. They took advantage of our country. They're not taking advantage of us anymore. If you looked at European Union, they're all my friends. I don't blame them. I blame our presidents. I blame our past presidents and, business leaders. But we are the king of countries that have been taken advantage of for many, many years. We've been paying trillions and trillions of dollars and receiving nothing at all. As an example, prior to the deal with Europe, where they pay a lot of money, but they're happy and I'm happy. The deal was good. It's a fair deal, but it wasn't fair. You couldn't put a car into Europe. You couldn't sell your agriculture into Europe. You couldn't do anything. And now we have it so that it's open. We charge them tariffs. We didn't charge them tariffs a car. They charge us tremendous. I said to Angela Merkel once, I said, how many cars have gone to Germany from the United States? And she said, well, I don't believe any. And I said, you're right. You're right. Well, that doesn't happen anymore. And they're paying a fair amount. It's just a fair amount. It's not, I could ask for much more. It's a fair amount. But the United States now is using the same thing that they've used on us. And I just can't believe it's taken presidents so long to do this. And again, we're going to treat people fairly. We're going to especially treat Canada fairly. But I can't believe it's taken so long where we get charged and don't charge them. Japan was a good example. We made a deal with Japan. You saw that, Mark? A deal with Japan. It's a much different deal than we've had in the past. But they would send us millions of cars, no charge. We weren't allowed to send them cars. We sent them no cars. I doubt you had one car go into Japan because we were restricted. They didn't want our cars. Same thing with Europe, same thing with other places. So now all we do now is fairness. But fairness leads us to the most successful country there's ever been. You know, we have some advantages over other countries, and we do have a great market. We have an amazing market. But you know what? If I let this go, if we didn't win this election, if we had these people that were running, that were ruining our country, destroying our country with their open borders and men playing in women's sports and transgender from everybody and windmills all over the place, if we allowed that to go on for another couple of years, we would be, I'm not sure that we'd even have a country. Yeah, Brian. And by the way, I'm not sure we would have even had a country. And now we have the most successful country in the world. Brian?
Yes, sir. What is your message to Democrats ahead of a next vote to open up the government? The American people are saying, open the damn government. What's your message to them right now?
Well, they're the ones that started it. They're the ones that have it. And it's almost like a kamikaze attack by them. You want to know the truth? This is like a kamikaze attack. They almost, you know, they have nothing to lose. They've lost the elections. They've lost the presidential election in a landslide. I saw the other day where Kamala said this was a very close election. This was one of the biggest sweeps that anybody's ever had. Won the popular vote by millions, won the Electoral College by a massive amount. They said, if I got 270, that would be great. But I got, I think, 312 or 315. And they got 220. So, you know, we won that. But we won counties. The big thing is counties. So out of all of the counties, thousands and thousands, we got 2,500. They got 525. It was a landslide. And we listened, oh, yes, it was close. It was one of the greatest victories ever. And it was a mandate to do what we're doing. And I hope, and Mark wants this as much as I do, we are very close to making a deal on the Middle East that will bring peace to the Middle East. After all of these years of millions and millions, tens of millions of people being killed, there's a chance to bring peace to the Middle East. In addition to that, I made 7 other deals, and they're, you know, great. And we're, you know, things are happening with respect to Russia, Ukraine. That's one that last week, Mark, 7,812 people were killed. Soldiers, mostly soldiers. Yep. But 7,000, more than 7,000, almost 8,000 soldiers were killed. It's a crazy thing. I thought that would have been one of the easy ones. I get along very well with Putin, and I thought that would have been, I'm very disappointed in him because I thought this would have been an easy one to settle, but it's turned out to be maybe tougher than the Middle East. We'll see what happens with the Middle East. The Middle East.
Is the fentanyl crisis over with Canada, with the Canadian border?
Is what?
The fentanyl crisis.
No, it's not over. It's never. I think it's never going to be over, frankly. But they've done. Canada's worked hard, and they've done a much better job than in the past. We have very few people coming in through our southern border too. We've worked with Canada and we've worked with Mexico, so we've made it a lot better.
Look, on fentanyl, any amount is too much. So we've gotten it down. It's down substantially. It's less than 1%, but it's still too much. It's too much at home in Canada.
A lot of people.
Yeah, we got to stamp it out.
On USMCA, are the two of you both committed to seeing it through in the renegotiation of that deal that you made?
Well, we can renegotiate it, and that would be good, or we could just do different deals. We're allowed to do different deals if we want. We might make deals that are better for the individual
What's your preference?
countries. I don't care. I want to make whatever the best deal is for this country, and also very much with Canada in mind. Yeah, go ahead, please. Go ahead, sir.
Sir, on China, what more can the United States and Canada do together to counter China?
Well, you have to be able to compete. They're a great competitor, and Mark and I both know that, and you have to be able to compete. We have big advantages over China for lots of different reasons, and I think we're doing very well with China. I get along very well with President Xi. I'm going to be meeting him in a few weeks, as you know. I'll be meeting him in South Korea, but we've had a very good relationship for a long time. But you have to be able to compete. To do well with China, if you can't compete, you're not going to do well with China. And Canada is very competitive. I can tell you that. Canada is a very competitive country. And I think Canada's done very well over the years with China.
Yeah, we have. But we'll do better together on that.
Mr. President, on Golden Dome, Middle East, what guarantees are you giving your Arab partners that Israel will not resume its offensive after the hostages are released?
Well, the primary guarantee is once this deal happens, if it does happen, look, they're in negotiations right now, we are going to do everything possible. We have a lot of power, and we're going to do everything possible to make sure everybody adheres to the deal. Okay?
Are you concerned about the delays at airports, and how do you see the shutdown?
Oh, sure. I mean, it's they're all Democrat delays. There are delays at the airport. That's standard. And again, this is something that every day we put forth a bill. It's just a continuation. It's a very simple thing to sign and very simple to do. And I really think that these are people that I think they have nothing to lose. They have a party that's out of control. They have no leader. Nobody knows who the leader is. I look at people with very low IQs like Crockett, this woman Crockett. I never met her. But she's a low IQ individual. I look at AOC talking about how if they want to negotiate, they can come to my office. She's not in that position to do that. And who the hell is she to say that? And then I watch Nancy Pelosi not knowing what to do. I watch their leadership. Look, Schumer is petrified of primary because he's not going to win probably against anybody in a primary. You know, Schumer did the right thing, but he handled it badly. Originally, a year ago, he did probably the right thing, but he handled it badly. I think Schumer's incapable of making a deal. They are a mess. They're a party that has no leadership. They have, and they have no policy. You know, we have great. I think we have great leadership, but we also have great policy. We have strong borders. We have no men and women's sports. I mean, basic things. We're not going to take your child away and change the sex of your child. We're not going to do things like that. What they're doing to the country is so incredible. And they got away with it with all their woke crap, and now it's stopped. And we have a country that's based on common sense and strength and intelligence. I mean, we have the United States of America, and I say it all the time. Other leaders have told me this. Mark hasn't yet, but I think he would. A year ago, we were a dead country, and now we are the hottest country anywhere in the world. Maybe Canada. I'll give Canada, but because I do like Canada. But you know, we're the hottest country in the world right now. There's never been a country that has the kind of money coming into it. There's never been anything like this. There's never been a country that if you take $1 trillion, that would be unbelievable. We're going to have over $20 trillion invested in this country. There's never been anything like what you're seeing, and it's based on good policy and common sense and leadership. Yeah.
Mr. President, what is Canada giving you in return? If you say Mr. Carney is going to be leaving Washington happy, what's Canada giving you in return?
Well, you'll find out, but I think the people of Canada, they will love us again. Most of them still do. If you say only 25%, I assume a lot of them, I think they love us. And you know what? I'm not the biggest hockey fan, but I like it a lot. And I watched some of the greatest hockey games I've ever. How good were those games, right?
Yeah, very good. We're coming down for the World Series, Mr. President.
Oh, good. By the way, your team is looking pretty good.
Mr. President, will you sign a trade deal with Canada that doesn't include supply managed goods like dairy, for example? The federal government.
Well, a deal would include dairy. I mean, it's going to include everything. We'll do a comprehensive.
Have you identified programs to eliminate under this shutdown?
Oh, sure. Sure.
Which ones?
We have a lot. I'm not going to tell you, but we'll be announcing it pretty soon. But we have a lot of things that we're going to eliminate and permanently eliminate. You know, one of the things that we have is some advantage, you could say, but because of the shutdown, which I think they made a big mistake, we're able to take out billions and billions of dollars of waste, fraud, and abuse, and they've handed it, you know, on a silver platter. And you know Russell Vogt, he's a serious person, very serious person, and he's sitting there and he's getting ready to cut things. And this is something that was handed to us by, I assume, Schumer. I just don't know if Schumer has any power anymore. I look at your leadership. I don't know who to speak to. I'll tell you what. I'm getting calls from Democrats wanting to meet.
And the circus continues, and that's Donald Trump with Mark Carney in the White House in the Oval Office. Now, if you want to keep up to date with all of the latest on that meeting, then scan that QR code on your screen right now. You can head over to GBN2 or onto YouTube and carry on with the rest of that. Now, as you may have heard, the Conservative conference is underway in Manchester, and Kemi Badenoch sat down with our political editor, Christopher Hope. They discuss everything from those reform defections to the future of the triple lock, her record in government, and even Gary Neville taking down the union flags. Let's take a listen.
Kemi Badenoch, thank you for talking to GB News today. Promising bold plans announced at this conference by your party on ECHR, climate change, justice too. How can voters trust you that you'll do it after not doing these things for 14 years?
Well, they can see that we're putting a lot of work into this. We didn't just rush out with the announcement without having the plans to back it up. Just look at the plans that Claire Coutinho announced on energy yesterday. Labour said that they were going to, cut bills by £300. No detail. Bills have gone up by £300. We said we can cut £165, and we've shown how. That's the honest way. But they can also trust me. When I was in government, lots of people saw what I did. We had to take collective responsibility, but many of the things that they didn't like on net zero, I was, arguing against. They can see how tough I was when it came to dealing with the issues around transgender activists, harming women and children going into single-sex spaces. I stopped Scotland from putting in self-ID. I am a Conservative, and I believe that we're the only party that can deliver that strong economy and strong borders that they want.
There were other failures too, and now we have the small boats crisis. The PM calls it the Farage boats. You might call it the Tory boats. It's caused by policies pushed by your party. The Boris wave, that was Boris Johnson. Millions came here. How do you shake off that record of failure?
So by telling people the truth. Small boats were not caused by Tory policies. They're small boats in France. They're in Italy. There is a problem with global mass migration. We tried lots of things to fix it. They didn't work. People saw that we ended up, the courts, stopping us from doing that. That's why we're leaving the ECHR, because we're tired of people using the courts to frustrate the democratic will. But you will remember that before small votes, it was channel migrants coming through the tunnel. We fixed that. We stopped that, so we can do it again. And that's what I want your viewers to know, that we believe immigration was too high under us. It happened not deliberately, but because we were trying to get more care visas, Ukrainians, people from Hong Kong.
That was a mistake, wasn't it?
But
the Boris wave was a mistake.
Yes, but it was a mistake by omission. It was not clear until a year later how many people had come in. And immediately after that, we changed lots of rules to bring the numbers down. Okay. Those numbers have come down now, and we will do more.
As we speak, councillors are defecting from the Tory party to reform. 12 so far, could be as many as 20 by late morning. Are you worried by this? These are people who fought for you at the local elections. Now they're leaving and going to reform. Nigel Farage has got it and you haven't.
Well, I completely disagree. And I'm sorry to see councillors go, but at the end of the day, we are making it clear that we are Conservatives. That means fiscal responsibility. We don't want to increase welfare. We don't want nationalisation. Those are reforms policies. If people agree with those policies, then they do have to go. They're not going to get them with us. We're going to live within our means. And the point I keep making is that the people who jump from party to party based on who's leading in the polls are not the sort of people you want running your country or running your council.
Just to be clear, you would rule out any deal pre-election with reform?
I've always ruled that out. People need to know what they're voting for.
We haven't heard much about the triple lock during your conference.
That's because it's not our policy to change anything on
So you'll fight the election on the commitments to honour the
people have paid. People have paid. Yeah. They've paid their contribution, and I don't think that that's where we should start when it comes to cutting spending. I've said, Chris, you've asked me this before, and I have said yes. I have said that the triple lock is Conservative policy.
And will be at the election.
The election is not tomorrow. I am talking about policies for today. I have said it's a Conservative policy, but there's an election in 4 years' time. What about the stuff we've said about the economy now? Getting people into work. People who are off work or on benefits.
What do you mean test state pension?
If I could just make this point, the first place to start has to be in the workplace. If people get off benefits and into work, it's a double whammy. They're paying more in taxes, we're not paying their benefits. We will grow the economy. If we grow the economy, then we don't have to worry about whether or not we can afford the triple lock. We can afford it. That's our policy.
Would you means test it? One of your Treasury team has said it reportedly that it could be means tested.
We are having a conference, and I said I want us to have debates, let people have the debates. But that's not policy. But we are not Labour or Reform where everybody's scared to say anything that the leader hasn't given permission to say. Have the debates, and then we'll decide who's right and who's wrong.
That's why I'm asking the leader what you think.
Yes, exactly.
What do you make of Gary Neville's remarks yesterday? He's been taking down flags. He says flags will be used in a negative fashion on some of his properties.
I think that that's just disgraceful. The flags are the things that bring us together. I love the Union flag. Everybody should be able to feel that the flag represents their home country. There's nothing to be ashamed of about it. It shouldn't be taken down. But that's Gary Neville for me. So.
Are you a big United fan, are you?
Crystal Palace is my family team now. I'm not a football fan, but my son is. So I go where he goes. He says we're Crystal Palace supporters.
But you're patriotic. I mean, just a different question. Why not play the national anthem at the end of your conference? You did it last year. You were on stage with the other three candidates.
Yeah, we did it on Sunday as well. Yeah.
Barely anyone in the room. But at the end of your conference, though, you'll walk out to the national anthem. Your members go out into the country singing the national anthem. Why not do that?
We've said that there's going to be singing the national anthem. We had it last year. We had it on Sunday.
Not at the end, though. When that's what some.
Well, we're going to have it on Wednesday.
Are you on Wednesday?
Yeah, we are having it on Wednesday.
Oh, are you? That wasn't the case.
Well, who said that?
Well, I was informed. We understood not the case, but you all played the national anthem then.
Yeah. Well, we played it on Sunday. That's not something people need to worry about. Yeah, we do.
And just finally, with your members and supporters, you've given them something to walk tall about now. Some policies to defend. We've been badgering you for a year about policies. You've now got them, and the big sell starts now for you, I suppose.
Yes, it does. But I want people to know that we have thought very carefully before announcing policies. We know that announcing things without knowing how you're going to deliver them breaks trust. And that's what's happening with Labour now. They rushed into the election saying all sorts of things. They don't know how to do it. We are the only party that can get stuff done, but also tough enough to make the difficult decisions. And that's why when I see people leaving our party, I know these people aren't tough enough to deal with tough times. We need people who will stay the course, who will hold their nerve. We're the only party that's got both those things. Stronger economy, stronger borders.
And your message to Nigel Farage?
We're the only party that can deliver a stronger economy, stronger borders. When people ask about our plans, they stay robust.
Kemi Badenoch, it's great to see you. Thank you for talking to us today on GBNews. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Well, that was our man Chris Hope flambeing Kemi Badenoch. Let's get over now to Manchester. Chris Hope, you held Kemi's feet to the fire. Tell us more.
Yeah, that's right. I thought you had a strong lines there from Kemi Badenoch. She's saying if you're not tough enough to deal with tough times, you can go to Reform UK, answering that question about why 20 councillors have quit the party today while we were speaking to her this morning. Gary Neville's remarks are disgraceful, she said, on flags. They shouldn't be taken down from building sites. And crucially, maybe for many GBNews viewers, they will play the national anthem at the end of the conference here in Manchester. We had thought they wouldn't do that. Obviously, we had Andrew Rosendale on our show yesterday, the Romford Tory MP. They now will play it, so members, activists can leave here with the national anthem ringing in their ear. That's obviously not where we thought we were yesterday. So lots there to talk about from Kemi Badenoch.
Great exclusive there. Thank you very much for bearing with us there. Donald Trump, of course, made things go into the long grass. Great interview. Thank you very, very much indeed. Now then, let's stick to a studio now. I'm joined in the studio by Reform UK Deputy Leader Richard Tice and a return for the political commentator Dominic Moffat. Richard, welcome to the show. Got you in today, of course. It's the second anniversary of the Hamas invasion of Israel. There's been a huge amount of talk about the human aid situation on the ground. You've been to the border. You've got some incredible video and some stills to show us. You've seen it with your own eyes. The United Nations claim that there is an international famine crisis there. What do you see?
So I was in Israel for 4 days, and I had unique access right into the heart of the humanitarian aid crossing down in the south element of the border at Kerem Shalom. And I saw trucks and trucks, dozens of trucks arriving. I was right in the centre of it, seeing more pallets of fruit and flour and bananas and avocados and onions and sugar than I've ever seen before. I saw Palestinian forklift truck drivers unloading them onto the distribution lorries that go across the border, moving at great speed. And I spoke to two very senior people involved in the logistics exercise of this. And there are hundreds of trucks going across every day. And do you know what I learned? It's the UN trucks, primarily from UNRWA, that are the slowest to get distributed. And I'm very concerned that we are being fed misinformation deliberately by vested interests who've got a very different agenda. And what's actually happening is that Hamas and gangs are stealing the food, in particular from the UN. But the UN is just one of well over a dozen charities. And then those are being essentially put on the market at black market prices. The profits of that essentially funds Hamas. And they all know this, but they won't tell us the truth. And you've got charities that won't provide Israel with the vetting information of their workers and then claim, having not complied with the rules, then claim that Israel is not allowing them to carry out with their operations. So, look, yes, the poorest in Gaza clearly are finding it difficult to get food because the black market prices. It's not about the quantity of food that's available, it's about the price that Hamas and the gangs are putting it on the markets at. That, I think, is the thrust of the hunger issue. But we are being misled. And those who think that there is a famine, and when we talk of famine, you think of what pictures we see in Ethiopia and Sudan. Frankly, that is a lie, and the UN is lying, and it needs to be called out. And I'm calling it out. I've been there, I've seen it, and it's very different from what we are being told.
Strong words. Now, we do have some video footage and some stills that you sent through earlier, Quinn. Please try and get those up before the end of the show to place yourself there. You went there. You've seen this. Some very strong words there, Richard Tice. Now, of course, just talk... No, that's the wrong footage. We've got some footage of Richard Tice actually with those aid convoys, with the foodstuffs. This is Richard Tice there. You're at the border there, and we have a video of you inspecting lots of merchandise. Talk us through what's on our screen here.
So
Richard.
there are dozens and dozens, hundreds of pallets of fresh fruit. There's onions, there's bananas, there's avocados, there's tins and tins and tins, more tins. There you've got huge quantities of flour and sugar and rice and the like. That was in one cell. These are concrete. You can see the concrete walls at the back. There are the trucks in the cell. You have to be protected, obviously, from potential bullets and missiles coming across. That's me walking through with an officer and understanding what's going on, how the process works. And this is going on throughout the day.
So just to be absolutely clear, you're saying with your own eyes you've seen a huge amount of foodstuffs there. The United Nations position is very different. Let's just read that out for balance. More than 500,000 people in Gaza are trapped in famine, they claim, marked by widespread starvation, destitution and preventable deaths, according to a new UN-backed food security report released just last week. And they're calling this famine in Gaza a failure of humanity itself. Dominic Moffat, you're watching in on this. What's your take?
Well, thank you. I think what's fundamentally not up for debate is that there are thousands, hundreds of thousands of people starving in Gaza. And what we've seen is convoys, large convoys on the border with Israel, unable to enter Gaza City. The UN, the World Health Organization, the Red Cross and the British government have all said there is famine in Gaza City. There are children there dying because they cannot get the food and they cannot get the health treatment they require. And fundamentally, that is because the Israeli government has made the border too difficult to cross.
OK, we have to get a statement in now from the World Food Programme. They declared that there is a famine in Gaza. In a statement in August, they said this: classifying famine means that the most extreme category is triggered when 3 critical thresholds: extreme food deprivation, acute malnutrition and starvation-related deaths have been breached. The latest analysis now affirms, on the basis of reasonable evidence, that those criteria have been met. And Richard Tice, before you go, take a listen to what Lord Heseltine had to say about Reform UK leader Nigel Farage earlier at the Tory conference.
And above all else, we will never, never have any part in the populist extreme of Nigel Farage. We have to deal. We have to deal with President Trump for the next 3 years. We don't want his mouthpiece anywhere near number 10.
OK, Richard Tice, what's your reaction there to Lord Heseltine back from the political oblivion?
Well, look, I mean, we live in a democracy, but in a sense, what we saw there is Lord Heseltine. He is at probably the lowest attended Tory conference in our lifetime. And I think that you are seeing a dinosaur slowly drifting away into oblivion, frankly, in terms of the Tory conference. It's irrelevant. You know, this morning, 20 councillors have defected to Reform. We're going up in the polls, and the Tory party is slipping down in the polls into irrelevance.
Thank you very much for joining us today, Richard Tice. Thanks also to Dominic Moffat. We had a load of stories we couldn't get to today because of Donald Trump, but don't worry, we'll bring you even more action-packed stuff on the show today. Of course, the second anniversary of the invasion of Israel. Up next is Jubes & Co. 6 p.m. Jubes, the queen of primetime debate. Michelle Dewberry, what's on your menu?
Hello, Martin. Great show, as always. Well, look, so much that we need to discuss. Of course, I want to look at Robert Jenrick's speech today, but now everything seems to have ramped up. He said that when he was in Birmingham for a recent visit, he didn't see another white face. There's calls now for him to be stripped of the whip. I mean, please, can we grow up a little bit? Having eyesight that works and reporting factually on your observations, it's not racist, is it? Also, Chris Phillips speaking today, and 3 out of 4 people said they're going to be financially worse off after the budget. See you in a minute.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Through this evening and overnight, we'll see a bit of a north-south split in our weather, often mild and cloudy towards the south, but to the north of this, clearer air means it's going to be turning chilly as we head through the course of the evening. There'll be some cloud and some spells of rain at times, particularly where we see this frontal system sinking its way southwards. So initially across northern parts of England, northern parts of Wales, and eventually sinking into central and southern parts through the course of the night. So often cloudy here with some spells of drizzle. To the north of this, though, largely dry and plenty of clear skies, so it's likely we'll see some mist and fog by the morning. This mainly across northern England, possibly Northern Ireland, but across Scotland, more cloud once again, plenty of showers moving through here. So a slightly chillier start across northern areas, but to the south, milder, cloudier with some drizzle. It's also going to be a fairly damp start once again across Scotland. Plenty of showers moving through here. These could merge together to bring some more persistent outbreaks of rain at times, but mostly dry across the far east of Scotland. Should be mostly dry too across Northern Ireland, northern parts of England, a chance of some low cloud around at times, particularly as we head towards dawn. And across parts of the south, once again, fairly cloudy. It's probably going to be quite a gloomy start with some drizzle in places. Now, this system once again will slowly shift its way southwards, so it will brighten up across many areas. Wales, central parts of England should see some sunny spells, even across Northern Ireland. Most of this cloud is likely to linger across the south and also fairly cloudy across Scotland, those showers continuing, and it's also going to be fairly breezy, particularly as we head towards the afternoon. Where we see any sunshine, once again, it should feel warm and pleasant, highs reaching around 17 to 18 degrees Celsius. Through into the evening, we'll see a split in conditions once again. The southern half of the country seeing those clearer skies, so a chance we could see some frost, possibly some mist and fog during the overnight period, and spells of rain continuing across Scotland. For the rest of the week and into the weekend, high pressure dominates, so mostly dry, but often quite cloudy.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good evening. This is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. Patient navigation is required on the M4 westbound between Coldra and Malpas due to congestion. A major incident in East Riding of Yorkshire has closed the M62 eastbound entry slip at junction 35. Tameside's M6 clockwise exit slip at junction 24 deals with a vehicle fire, closing one lane. Somerset's A303 between Ilchester and Podimore recovers from a collision, but one lane remains closed. The M20 westbound in Kent is hindered between junctions 9 and 8 due to a significant incident. And on the trains, Chiltern Railways report disruptions between London Marylebone and Aylesbury Vale Parkway. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
This is your chance to win a motorhome and cash in our biggest giveaway to date. Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be the proud owner of this 2025 Benamar Primero. It comfortably accommodates 4 people and can be driven on your standard driving licence. Plus, you'll also bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. Make sure you don't miss out. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very, very easy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What did she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace to Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. GB News